Good evening, everyone, and welcome to a live stream from yours truly, Jackson Johnson, and my partner in crime, Austin Williams from Sports Talk with Austin, as we go over the must watch matchups of the 2025 SEC college football season. And let me tell you something, it'll be a wild ride. How you doing tonight, good buddy?
Oh, I'm doing pretty good, Jackson. Enjoying President's Day, hanging out with friends and family, and come here to do the SEC schedule breakdown with you, good buddy. I couldn't think of a better way to end the day,
There you go.
especially when we talk about your Crimson Tide. I'm looking forward to getting some knowledge dropped on me about the Crimson Tide.
Nice. Well, I'll tell you something, it's going to be a lot of fun. And I've got the SEC Week 1 schedule pulled up from FBS schedules. That's for everyone in the conference,
Mm-hmm.
but I noticed that there's not any conference games for Week 1. So that's
Mm-hmm.
gonna be something right there. Oh, we got
Mm-hmm.
Shane Beamer going up against Virginia Tech. That's where his dad used to coach. That's gonna be funny, and it's in the the Aflac kickoff, not Chick-fil-A kickoff.
Don't feel bad, Jackson. I've done it too. I keep wanting to call it the Chick-fil-A kickoff. We've all done it.
I know,
But
right?
I will but I will say though, Jackson, I am looking forward to South Carolina Virginia Tech, kind of a reunion game. Shane Beamer going to play his dad's alma mater, where Beamer Ball was born, you know, and can South Carolina capitalize on their momentum from the 2024 season? Because, in some preseason polls, Jackson, the way too early preseason polls, some people have South Carolina in their top 10. So they've got some expectations to live up to. And this is going to be a good, I think, prove it game to start the year out.
Oh yeah. But of course, we got some bigger games as well. We got Texas, Ohio State, Syracuse,
Oh, yeah.
Tennessee, Alabama, Florida State, Auburn, Baylor, and LSU, Clemson. To me, the two that are two of them that are really sticking out to me are LSU, Clemson, and Texas, Ohio State. Especially
Yes.
that playoff rematch in Columbus. That is going to be huge. I just wonder if we'll
Hmm.
see it on NBC or Bid Noon Kickoff. I mean, that's pretty much it. I know we're going to see another great performance from Jeremiah Smith at Ohio State, but the question is, can the Longhorns put a stop to him? Alabama, Florida
Hmm.
State. Alabama's looking to rebound from a terrible 2024 season, terrible by our standards, of course. And Florida State's looking to rebound from their 2-10 season. And what better way started off in Tallahassee? Syracuse, I
Hmm.
wonder which Syracuse we're going to get. Are we going to see more of the same from Fran Brown where he's bringing out magic? Or is it going to be like later in the season?
I'll say this, Jackson. Like you said, the biggest game of week one is Texas Ohio State. It's probably going to be the headliner, what gets the most attention, what gets the most eyeballs. But if you think about it, Jackson, both Texas and Ohio State, they're revamped teams coming into next year. And Arch Manning, what a way to start, your first game as a quarterback. To get your first big start. He started games obviously this past year, but they were a lot against the pedestrian competition, the Mississippi States of the world, teams that they can handle. This is going to show us what Arch Manning is made of. And Ohio State, like you said, Jeremiah Smith is only a sophomore. He's got another year with Ohio State. So this is going to be one of them games, Jackson, that's going to be. I know it's only week one, and we don't want to jump the gun, but could be season defining for weeks to come.
Yeah, it'll be huge.
Hmm. And like you said, for Syracuse, Tennessee, can Syracuse and Fran Brown build off their momentum, kind of like South Carolina, and How legit is Tennessee, Jackson? Was last year a fluke for them? I know you have your doubts.
Well, that's going to be a question. Are we going to see Tennessee have another 10-win season, or are they going to have an 8-win season? Because there's
Mhm.
that lingering question, which we'll get to later on. But as for Auburn, let's see how that transfer portal class is coming up for the Auburn Tigers against Baylor. LSU, they have not won a big non-conference game in the regular season as long as they've been having Brian Kelly as head coach. I
Mhm.
I don't know if they can get it done because I mean it's like their offense is fine, but their defense is a disaster.
Mhm. And Jackson, like you mentioned, Week 1 is could be a must-win game for Brian Kelly and LSU. Like that's crazy to think, but this Clemson game could be a must-win for LSU because, like you said, their history on opening day games or opening weekend games are not very good.
Agreed.
So we'll have to find out and see. Like I'm looking forward to it, but I mean, week 1, Jackson. Of course, you got your cupcakes in there, but week 1 in the SEC is looking kind of good. You've got your games in there: Texas, Ohio State, and Clemson, LSU, the two big ones.
Yep. But week 2, let's look at week 2, shall we? Little sloppy compared to week 1, but there are some
Hmm.
great games. We got Arizona State, Mississippi State, Michigan, Oklahoma, and let's see. Oh, the renewal of the border war between Kansas and Missouri. How nice. Virginia
Yeah,
Tech, Virginia Tech
real quick.
looking to get revenge, and there's Ole Miss, Kentucky. Oh
Oh
man.
boy, Jackson. I know we might scoff at it now, being Kentucky, but Jackson, Kentucky is the sole reason Ole Miss missed the playoffs this past year. And think about this, Jackson. This right here for Ole Miss could be, I won't say important, but could be a game that could haunt them early in the season as there's ever been. Because, Jackson, could you imagine losing to Kentucky in week 2 of the year? What that would do to Lane Kiffin's confidence?
Oh man. That would be devastating if Ole Miss lost that one. But on the other hand, was that due for Mark Stoops? A ton.
Hmm. Yeah. And the thing, too, is, Jackson, here's the thing with Mark Stoops. He always bounces back after a bad season. Like, you just get the sense he had a bad year this year. Everyone's writing him off. And I kind of feel like Kentucky's going to win 8, 9 games again this year. And Mark Stoops is going to kind of get the fan base back with him again.
Yeah. And we're looking at Michigan, Oklahoma. Let's look at that for a moment. Are
That
we
could be
going
a
to see
fun
that?
game.
Yeah, I mean, are we going to see that new look offense look good against Michigan? That's going to be the question. Can John Mater save the day for the Sooners?
Yeah, Jackson, I feel like Oklahoma being this early in the year, I think they're going to have their struggles, especially playing a defense as talented as Michigan. They're nowhere near the defense that they had this past year or a couple years ago, but I really do think Oklahoma's offense might struggle a little bit to begin the year. And this might be one of them games that we look at right now and think, "Oh, this could be fun. This could be exciting," and then it turns out to just be a Michigan mollywhopping because Oklahoma's offense is not in gear. It kind of reminds me, Jackson, of how everyone was excited for Tom Brady's arrival in Tampa, right? Oklahoma fans, they're excited for John Mater, In Oklahoma, they're thinking he's going to breathe new life into this offense. Brent Venables is going to hold down the defense, and it just never clicks. It struggles, and it just sputters. I feel like that's what this game could be, a learning curve.
Oh yeah. That's what we can see. And I mean, it's a good time to learn because Oklahoma has an easy start to the season.
hmm Yeah, and I'll say this too, Jackson. For Oklahoma, obviously it's February. It's not June or July.
Now,
Want to preface this for our viewers out there. We are not making any predictions. We're not giving out any, Oklahoma's going to win 19 games. Do not expect that from us tonight. Now, later on, we might come back later on in June or July and make a video or a live stream. If that's something you want to see me and Jackson do predictions for the year, we'll do that later on. Right now, we're just kind of looking at the schedule, kind of giving you what we think of everybody.
exactly. I mean, that Kansas Missouri game I've got my eye on that, honestly, because it's coming back for the first time since 2011. Let me tell you
hmm
something. That's going to be great for college football to see the renewal of an old rivalry. And we got Tim
hmm
Franklin in the chat giving a hello, man. How are you doing tonight, Tim? And we got Hummus here giving out a hello. How are you doing tonight, Hummus? Long time no see, gentlemen. Great to see y'all.
What's up, guys? I know, it's the SEC, everyone's favorite conference, but don't you guys worry. We're going to talk about the Big Ten. Don't you worry. Don't you worry, Tim and Hummus. We know you're Big Ten guys. The SEC may not be your speed, but don't you worry. We're going to talk about the Big Ten. We got you covered. We got you covered. Ain't that right, Jackson?
Oh, we've got them covered. But yeah, for me, the top two games for week two I'm thinking about are Michigan, Oklahoma, and Missouri, Kansas. But what do you think,
hmm
Austin?
Yeah, Michigan, Oklahoma. I think, yeah, the two you said, Kansas, Missouri, you know, Arizona, Mississippi State. I mean, I, the last couple years they played, they've been really fun games to watch. I mean, I think that game all depends on Arizona State. How much of a step back are they going to take? Because that could be one of those games that decides who gets the bowl eligibility first.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens for Kansas and Missouri. Vanderbilt, Virginia Tech. I wonder if Virginia Tech's thinking about revenge. I mean, if you put that game on Thursday night, although I doubt they're going to put it on Thursday night because, I mean, I don't think they want to compete with the defending Super Bowl champion Eagles, depending on who they're
No,
playing.
no, 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 no. No,
But it
no,
would
no,
be
no.
nice to flip between a college football game and an NFL game. That would be
That
nice.
is, that
I
is
mean,
true.
so
South Florida Jackson, that could be a dark horse good game. South Florida's been known to give Bama some trouble.
yeah, that's true.
That
And
could be
they
a
could,
good dark horse game.
oh yeah. How funny would it
Yeah.
be if Louisiana Tech was to beat LSU? I mean, it would never happen, but if they did, funny.
Jackson, only you would say that. Only you, Jackson. Yeah, God, I love you to death like a brother, Jackson, but only you would throw that out there.
Nah. Well, I know it wouldn't happen, but that's just for giggles. But
hmm
Utah State Texas A&M, that looks underrated. I mean, potential trap
hmm
game for A&M, I suppose, because I mean, Bronco Mendenhall is back in the state of Utah, but this time he's coaching Utah State. He left New Mexico after his first and only season there.
You're right, Jackson. Like you said, I could smell trap game.
Yeah. I mean, sloppy
Hmm.
slate mean one thing. Upsets are coming.
I was about to say, hit your famous line. But yeah, Michigan, Oklahoma, I think is the headliner for this week. But don't sleep on Florida, South Florida, Kentucky, Ole Miss, Utah State, A&M. Don't sleep on them games.
Nah. Week 3, I mean, it's something. I mean, we've got 4 conference matchups for that week.
Hmm. I mean, we've got Wisconsin, Alabama. Wisconsin coming to Tuscaloosa. How you feeling about that one, Jack?
I think we'll be fine against Wisconsin. I love the home and home series, to be honest. I think it's great for not just Alabama, but for all of college football. And the one game that I've really got my eye on is Georgia, Tennessee. Because Tennessee just does not seem to do well against Georgia for some reason. But
Hmm.
it looked like 2024 was going to be that year where they could beat Georgia. They come up short. Maybe this
Hmm.
year they could. Texas
Jackson,
A&M Notre Dame looks good.
yeah, rematch from the opener last year. Jackson, I'm looking at this kind of like, Florida LSU's jumping off the page to me because we all remember the famous shoe throwing game. You remember
Oh,
that?
from 2020.
Yeah, you remember that game, Jackson?
Mm-hmm.
It cost Florida a potential playoff spot.
Yep.
And if you think about it, Jackson, it could be a make or break game for Brian Kelly and Billy Napier, because this could be one of those games, Jackson. The loser of this game could potentially have lost their job.
Yeah, because I mean, 2023 LSU's defense was just terrible. They were just
Jay
terrible.
Jay Daniels, Jackson. If Jay Daniels wasn't as great as quarterback as he was, LSU might have went 7-5 instead of going 9-4.
LSU's defense was so bad, I forgot for a little bit that Jaden Daniels was the Heisman winner for 2023. That's bad. I don't
Like
forget
Jackson,
Heisman winners.
think about it, Jackson. Not to go too far back in history here, but you really look at it. LSU could have been 7-5 that year. That's how bad
Mhm.
their defense was.
Oh,
And
yeah,
and like you said, you forgot Jane Daniels won the Heisman that year. That's
that's bad.
bad.
You don't forget the Heisman winner. That's just something you're not supposed to be forgetting.
And Hummus Hero says the LSU game, what a classic. Yeah, that was. To this day, I still don't know why they. That was the dumbest decision I ain't ever watched, but and it cost Dan Mullen his job. So good job, Florida.
Oh yeah. Oh,
But I'll say this though, Jackson. I think it's gonna be a good game, especially DJ Lagway. I'm looking forward to seeing what he does in year 2 at Florida. This will be his first big road game. I'm looking forward to it.
I hope they smack LSU off the face of the earth.
Uh,
If it's in nighttime, I don't think that's gonna happen.
mm-mm. But like you said though, Jackson, Georgia, Tennessee, is this year Tennessee puts the Georgia Demons to bed?
Oh yeah. Well, and Tennessee's got a few more demons they need to put up. Matter of fact, they're road demons,
Yes.
which we'll get to them
Well,
in a bit.
I mean, looking at this slate, Jackson, this is a pretty good slate. You've got Bama, Wisconsin, A&M, Notre Dame, Georgia, Tennessee. You've got LSU, Florida. This is a good week.
Hmm. Oh yeah,
I'm kind of, I'm kind of looking forward to watching this. Maybe week 4 can deliver.
maybe it will. I like that Florida Miami game from week 4. The Columbia battle looks all right. Auburn, Oklahoma. My God, last year, 2024 edition of Auburn, Oklahoma, that was wild.
Yeah, and Florida, Miami, your favorite rivalry, Jackson. It's renewed. It's
That
coming back.
only for another year.
Another game, Jackson, that kind of pops off the board. Board is, like you said, Auburn, Oklahoma, another classic from last year.
Oh yeah.
Tulane, Ole Miss. Can Tulane shock Ole Miss?
I hope they do. I'm still mad at Ole Miss for canceling that home and home in USC. That's that's not okay in my book. There's no way.
Jackson, if you ever write a book about the history of the, if you ever write a book about the history of college football, that's going to be in the book.
Oh,
I'm
I'll be an
still
old
upset about it.
I'll be an old man by that time. I'll be like in my 60s right now.
You'll be like, I'm still upset about USC Ole Miss not playing each other in a home and home.
Yeah. But yeah,
But
it's
I
like,
digress.
but with Florida, Miami, I really hope Florida wins that one on the one hand, but then on the other hand, it's like kind of want to see Miami win that one. I don't know.
Mm.
It's gonna be tough for me to pick, but Miami is a weird Jekyll and Hyde team.
Oh
They
yeah.
play up and down to their opponents. They win games they shouldn't. They lose games they shouldn't. Which Miami
Hmm.
will we get that for Florida, honestly? And Arkansas, Memphis, that was like a little pretty good group of 5 power 4 game.
Hmm. Yeah,
And you talking
Jackson,
Tulane Ole
Memphis.
Miss, Arkansas Memphis, something to watch out for.
Yes, Jackson. Memphis won 11 games last year, very quietly, and they're returning a lot of production. And Arkansas does have a tendency to lose a game like this. I would not sleep on this game in week 4.
Oh, no problem. I'll place money on Memphis right now. What do you
Well,
have,
I
sir?
wouldn't.
What will you have, sir? Oh, I've got a September parlay, and I want to put Memphis money line against Arkansas.
I feel like Jackson, the headliner for this week, I feel like is 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 Miami, Florida. I feel like that's going to be the headliner. But there's a
That,
lot of good sneaky games in there.
oh yeah. Well, that and Auburn, Oklahoma looks like it's going to be the headliner.
I mean, so week 4, a little bit of a letdown, but let's see if week 5 can pick it back up.
Oh, it will because there's Alabama, Georgia, and we got
Oh,
LSU, Ole Miss, the Magnolia Bowl. Man, somebody told the schedule makers that that's 3 days before my birthday because I like seeing an old rivalry in college football.
what a weekend! You've got Ole Miss, LSU, Bama, Georgia, 2 rematches from classics last year, and this time, Jackson. As much as I've tried to defend BK and Brian Kelly tried to defend him, this is going to be a big game for one reason. Because what do you always say, Jackson? Can LSU beat Ole Miss in Oxford, Mississippi?
No, no, they can't. They usually can't.
Well, hey Jackson, how you feeling about Bama, Georgia this time around? Carson Beck transfers out. Georgia, defensive line, you know, they're beefing them up again. How you feel about this game?
Georgia is ready and raring to go. Alabama's gonna have to make sure they are prepared and ready.
Hmm. Like, let me ask you this, Jackson. By this point, is there a change at starting quarterback for Bama?
It's a possibility.
I mean, who is the projected starter? Is it Russell or is it Simpson?
We
Who's
don't
y'all's
know
projected
yet.
starter?
We'll know more by the start of
Okay,
August. But either
okay,
by the
okay.
start, and if there's a quarterback issue still by that time, expect the starter to be named before, like I would say, a few days before week 1.
Okay. So hence why, like I said, we won't make any predictions because, as you can see, Bama still don't know who their quarterback's going to be, which they're not the only ones. But I digress.
Notre Dame, Arkansas looks good.
Yes, that's enough. Well, Jackson, we've got two like gigantic, enormous conference games. But then you got Notre Dame, Arkansas kind of sitting there like, okay,
Odds
that could
odds
be a
one.
good one.
Well, and you got Auburn, Texas A&M. That looks pretty good. Utah
Oh
State,
gosh.
Vandy. Utah State, Vandy looks sneaky.
Mhm. Yeah, Jackson, Auburn, Texas A&M. Who can ever forget that classic before rivalry week?
Oh, last season, oh man, A&M's gunning for blood.
hmm And here's the thing, Jackson. At this point, Jackson, this is going to be kind of a measuring stick for Auburn. How far have they come? How good do we think they are? Like that'll be kind of their measuring stick game. And like you said, Jackson, Arkansas, Notre Dame. Memphis could be their trap game. Now that we look at the schedule,
Oh yeah,
makes that even makes that game the week before even more dangerous.
agreed.
I, I'll say this, Jackson. Uh, Ole Miss, LSU, Bama, Georgia, they're your two headliners. I would say Bama, Georgia is probably your biggest game because that's going to determine who goes and plays for the SEC title. But you may disagree with me.
I think this game can determine who's going to be the top four in the SEC. I mean, Alabama, Georgia, LSU, Ole Miss. That's going to be a huge tall tale sign.
Yeah, they're the headliners for week 5. But Jackson, can week 6 deliver us anything? Surely goodness will.
Oh,
Oh, that's a sloppy slate.
yeah, but that means upsets could be coming. And let's not forget, Florida looks like a trap game for Texas because the week after that game, we're going to see Texas, Oklahoma.
hmm Yeah, Texas, Florida, another sneaky good game, like you said.
Mm-hmm.
And it's in the swamp. And if it's at night, Jackson, it could be prone for more upsets. And here's the thing, Jackson, call me nuts. And if the real is watching, call me nuts, Jackson. Don't sleep on Kentucky, Georgia,
No, no.
because think about it, Jackson. The way the schedule lines up, you got Tennessee, Bama, two big games for Georgia, and then you've got Kentucky. Let's say they beat Alabama. Hangover time.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't the, like we saw it this past year, Jackson. Kentucky almost pulled it off. They had more competent play calling, but I'll leave that for the real. But I, Texas, Florida looks like it's the headliner this week.
Yeah.
Vandy.
Well, the second best one for me is Vanderbilt, Alabama. Can
Oh,
Alabama get revenge against Vandy?
here's the thing, Jackson. Will lightning strike twice? Because let's say you all beat Georgia. Can Vandy do it again?
Ooh.
Spoil your season once again.
If
Like
Vanderbilt,
Jackson, you
if Vanderbilt's the one spoiling our season, we need to do a reevaluation as a whole.
Jackson, think about this. Look how the schedule makers did this, Jackson. You played Georgia the week before, like last year, and they put Vandy right after again. I don't find that as just a coinky dink. I think they did that on purpose. Is they're like, ooh, let's do this again and let's see if lightning can strike twice.
Yep. Wow, let's do that again. No.
Yeah, Greg Sankey's like, no. Put Vandy before rivalry week, or put Vandy somewhere else. No. We can't have Bama losing again. No. And the schedule makers are like, do we listen to Sankey or do we listen to the fans? Hmm, let's listen to the fans on this one.
But we'll wait and see
But
what happens. But that Texas Florida game's gonna be wild.
Jackson, that's probably going to be the headliner for week 6.
Oh man. Let I need to see who's on the slate for Wheats's because I think I saw let me see. Oh, Miami, Florida State's going to be on for the ACC, so maybe College Game Day goes there. But I don't care. I'm not worried about where College Game Day goes at the moment. Week
Week
7.
7.
There it is. Oh, for me, the best game of that week. Well, the two best ones are Texas, Oklahoma, Georgia, Auburn because of the rivalries, man.
You know, Jackson, Oklahoma, Texas, obviously the game, like you said, the rivalry. Alabama, Missouri could be sneaky good in
Ooh,
Columbia.
that'd be
Does
good.
Eli Drinkwitz does Eli Drinkwitz have an upset in his pocket?
Ooh, that's a
Or
good
what
one.
about or what about Florida A&M?
You know, Florida Texas A&M is a good one.
Or how about the rematch South Carolina LSU in the Bayou where College Game Day went last year? This is a pretty good looking slate.
Well, and Tim Prangley says the Florida game is going to suck because DJ Lagway is going to be a Trojan. Ooh, sounds like I need to keep an eye on DJ Lagway as to whether he's going to stay in Florida or not.
Oh, okay. Okay, Tim. Dropping the knowledge. Me and Jackson, we had I had no clue DJ Lagway was going to be a Trojan.
I feel like if either one of those quarterbacks were like, you know what, we're leaving our place, I feel like it would be a little Lenora Sanders, not Sanders, Sellers. But I don't know where my mind is tonight.
What about this one, Jackson? I mean, Georgia Auburn.
Oh yeah, the Deep South's oldest rivalry at Auburn. Although to be honest, I wish they would just put it on 2 weeks before rivalry week, like before. I mean, I know Auburn had a hissy fit about, oh, I hate this. Like, well, come on. It's not been working out the way you wanted it to. You're still getting smacked by Georgia off the face of the earth. So it's not going the way you think it should.
Well, and think about it too, Jackson, is what is one thing Auburn always does when they play Georgia or Alabama, Jordan Hare?
They always
You've
play
said,
tough. They always play them
mm-hmm,
tough. And I know what's
mm-hmm,
going to happen. Auburn's going to be a 14-point underdog. What's going to happen is they're going to beat the spread. That's always going to happen. And especially where they got all those portal additions on their roster and you got Hugh Freeze as head coach. I mean, who knows? They could be going where Bruce Pearl's taking Auburn basketball.
mm-hmm. I mean, Jackson, this is a pretty good week for week 7. It's a pretty good week. I like it. I I think the headliner for this week's probably going to be Georgia Auburn. I mean, Arkansas Tennessee. Revenge game for Tennessee.
Oh yeah, I didn't even think about that for a minute. Tennessee.
Yeah, yeah. I'm kind of scanning through. Arkansas Tennessee never popped off the page, but now it
Here
kind
we
of is
are.
because it's like that Arkansas was the one team that did beat Tennessee.
Hmm.
Week 7's going to be good. Like Jackson, this has a chance to be one of the best weeks of college football. But can week 8 top that?
Oh man, Troy V's got a great comment. Auburn is due for their once a decade good team.
You know what, Troy V? You're probably right. Might be the year.
There, there it is. There it is. The third Saturday in October, and they're getting it right once again by actually putting it on the third Saturday in October, not pushing it down to the fourth Saturday in October. I'm glad they're not doing that anymore. They're putting that, but in all seriousness, to me, Tennessee, Alabama, and Ole Miss, Georgia are the best games on the Week 8 slate. But the fact of the matter is, for Tennessee, can this year be the year where they beat Alabama in Tuscaloosa? Because they have not done so since 2003. where they won in 5
Mm-hmm.
overtimes against a pitiful Alabama team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Jackson, don't sleep on Missouri Auburn. Don't sleep on that game either. They gave us a pretty good show this past year. I wouldn't sleep on that game.
Don't sleep on LSU Vanderbilt either.
Texas, Kentucky, you could probably skip that game, and you wouldn't miss nothing probably.
Oh, Texas will smoke Kentucky like a chimney.
only, only Jackson would say a distorted phrase like that. But in all
Oh,
seriousness, though,
but
I
Oklahoma,
mean,
South Carolina, we see Shane Beamer, going against Oklahoma yet again, his old school, but this time in his own backyard.
hmm well, and I mean, the thing about it too is Jackson. Like, obviously, like you look at down the schedule for weekday. Alabama, Tennessee, and Georgia, Ole Miss are the two games that people are going to be locked in on. But I feel like the SEC's got a lot of depth because Missouri, Auburn, even though it may be bad depth, this could be really fun. And like you said, Jackson, is Georgia going to bounce back? Can Ole Miss go to Georgia and get the W? One place that they've never been able to do it consistently.
Ooh, it's gonna be a good question. Can we see those Bulldogs get revenge against Ole Miss?
Texas A&M, Arkansas. I mean, I wouldn't sleep on that game either.
No.
The only game, Jackson, that I look at like is Texas, Kentucky, Mississippi State, Florida. I mean, Mississippi State tends to put up a fight against the Gators. I don't know why, but they do. But could get interesting.
Here we go. Okay.
But
Well, this is. Oh, I just had to make sure I was getting my research correct on Texas A&M Arkansas. That's going to be the first game since Texas A&M joined the SEC, and
mhm.
since 2020 that we're not going to see this game be in the Jerry Dome.
Ooh, okay.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. So, like, the only game. So this was the thing. Texas A&M and Arkansas, when they agreed to this series in March of 2008, they originally planned on playing it for 10 consecutive years, starting with '09. And then there's going to be 5 consecutive 4-year rollover options to where it could be played 30 consecutive years. I don't think anybody thought A&M was going to be joining the SEC at that time. But here we are. It happened, and we see Texas A&M and Arkansas back on an annual basis. Well, it's been back for an annual basis since 2012. We got Dave E coming on in here, giving out a roll tide. Roll tide, Dave E. There we go.
Roll Tide. Even though I'm not an Alabama fan, I just love saying Roll Tide.
There you go. Well, oh man. I can't wait for the Bama Tennessee game. I hope we get revenge on them.
I mean, and I'll say this too, Jackson. You mentioned A&M Arkansas. This has always been one of them games for Sam Pittman. If he wins the game, Arkansas goes on to have a really good year. But when they lose it, they fall off.
Ugh,
Almost like almost like Syracuse does with Clemson in a way.
I know, right? And it's like the only time Arkansas has won since A&M joined the SEC was in 2021. That was it. Arkansas can't get anything right against Texas A&M.
Oh, right. But like you said, the third Saturday in October, really good slate. But what does week 10 have to offer
Oh,
us?
week 9.
Week 9, excuse me, jumping the gun.
Oh, South
Ooh.
Carolina making us their homecoming game. Yeah, that was very
Oh.
respectful, Gamecocks.
Texas A&M LSU Jackson in the Bayou. That's
God,
probably going to be the headliner.
that's gonna be a humongous one. But you know what's
Tennessee could.
funny? A&M
What's
can
that?
never
Goodbye.
win in the. You know how I always make that big deal about how LSU can't win in Oxford anytime they play in Ole Miss, and how Ole Miss can't win in Baton Rouge against LSU. Well, A&M
Mm-hmm.
can't get it done in the Bayou usually. They cannot get it done. I mean, like 2021, they came up short. 2023, they lose by 12, even though it was a freaking noon game. And it's like the last time. Okay, so the last time they won in Baton Rouge was in 1994. The one of the best years to go to the movies, and that was
Mm-hmm.
an 18-13 victory over LSU on
Mm-hmm.
September 3rd of 1994.
Mm-hmm. And I'll say this too, Jackson. We all remember that classic that they had with Joe Burrow in 2018, I believe it was. The
28.
nine
That's
overtime.
correct.
Was it nine overtimes or eight?
No, it was 7. 7, man.
Seven. Seven, seven, seven,
Yeah,
seven.
8.
My bad.
Yeah. Yeah, like 9 overtimes is Penn State, Illinois for
Thank
2021.
you. My
Yeah.
apologies. My brain gets confused too. But Jackson, that game changed the overtime rule in college football. The rule, Jackson, that you said you personally do
I
not
hate it.
like.
I hate it. I hate it. I hate that. That is a dumbass rule by the NCAA, but I digress.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, well, here's the thing too, Jackson. I mean, like you said, Bama, South Carolina, a game that was pretty good last year. A game that nobody expected to be good, and South Carolina almost beat you guys if Sellers doesn't throw the interception. I mean, and here's the thing, Jackson. Like you said, this is the homecoming game. I wonder if Kalen DeBoer is going to take the Nick Saban mindset and be like, you know what? They want to make us their homecoming game. Let's give them a show then.
Oh yeah. We want Bama. No, you don't. No, you don't. You do not want Bama.
Auburn, Arkansas, Jackson. That could be a fun game. Missouri, Vandy.
Maybe our Auburn, Arkansas can be another one of those random overtime games that we see Arkansas having.
Eh,
They always
I
have a
mean,
weird
Jackson.
overtime game for some reason.
And I'll say this too, Jackson. Ole Miss, Oklahoma. We kind of bypassed that. I mean, could that be a game Oklahoma wins?
I want to know which Oklahoma we're gonna get. The one that's looking good or the one that's looking bad. That is just crossing my mind. As for the Ole Miss
Mm-hmm.
Rebels, we're gonna wait and see.
But as for week 9, Jackson, I think the headliner is A&M LSU, and then Bama South Carolina.
Oh yeah.
Tennessee Kentucky, it might be close for the first half, but then the chew Kentucky up like a chicken nugget.
Oh yeah.
But what about week 10, good buddy?
Florida,
Maybe that'll
Georgia.
be some goodie. The world's largest cocktail party,
Yep.
outdoor cocktail party. Let me get it right. Ooh, Oklahoma, Tennessee could be fun.
It'll be interesting. Battle of Cats between
Ooh,
Auburn and Kentucky. That was good.
yeah. Vanderbilt, Texas. I mean, I know people may laugh at that on the surface, but Vandy gave them a really good game last year.
Oh yeah.
Oh, Mississippi State, Arkansas.
Yeah,
Mm,
but that game's gonna be on Disney Plus.
Ooh, South Carolina, Ole Miss, Jackson, a dark horse potential could be by this time could be for the right to be playing for the third or fourth best team in the SEC, maybe.
Oh, that's gonna be a good one. That's gonna be a good one.
Could
South Carolina and Ole Miss.
could this be a game that decides Ole Miss's playoff fate?
We'll wait and see. Could decide South Carolina's fate in the playoffs, but we'll wait and see.
Yeah, yeah. I'm not going to go on record and say these two teams are going to be in the playoffs. No. That would be stupid right now because we don't even know their rosters. We can only guesstimate. But
And we got
I
the
will
week
say this though,
11.
Jackson,
Oh, what's that?
real quick. The Florida Georgia game. I feel like Jackson this year, Florida could pull off the win. This is the first time in a long time I felt confident about Florida's chances. What
It's
what
been a
about
minute.
you?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a minute for the Gators. So, I mean, you got DJ Lagway in the lineup. You're good to go. That would be
And
funny
just like
because, like,
go for
divisions
it,
not
but
being a thing. What if Georgia, Florida? I mean, I don't think it would happen, but what if Georgia, Florida was the SEC title game?
I would watch that.
I know, right?
And just like Troy V says, Georgia Florida might be a good game. Yeah, it really could. Because this isn't the Georgia that's kicking butt anymore. This is Georgia that's like whimpering. The poor dog needs a nap.
Yep.
But week 11, though, Jackson, as you were saying,
Let me guess. They're putting Alabama LSU on ABC. Yep. Well, no, not yet. Man, this lineup's sloppy.
Florida, Kentucky,
Terrible.
and Lexington.
Yeah.
Can Florida snap the losing streak to Kentucky? I mean, excuse me,
I thought they
excuse me.
did.
Get it?
Yeah.
Yes. My apologies. Can they snap the losing streak in Kentucky? They haven't won in Kentucky in a long time. Can they snap it?
Yeah. I think they can. They're kind of just taking back that game. So
Eh, And Troy V says, if I remember correctly, last year Florida was looking like they would win until Lagway went down. Yes, you would
yeah,
be correct.
yeah, because he was talking about the world's largest outdoor cocktail party.
Hmm. So Florida Kentucky Jackson is interesting because here recently Mark Stoops has had Billy Napier's number, but we'll see. Oh, the Citadel against Ole Miss.
Oh God, go away, Citadel.
What? Georgia, Mississippi. Okay, this is getting ridiculous.
Somebody's screwing with
LSU,
them.
LSU, Alabama. That's definitely the headliner.
Oh, it's who?
A&M, Missouri, Jackson. How you feeling about that game?
Second best. That's what it looks like.
And Jackson, and I'm gonna call it right now, and I'm gonna go on record. You could clip this, mark it, and me and Jackson always have this discussion. But LSU, Alabama will be college game day. Will be there
Of
like
course.
they have been for the last 3 years.
Yeah. Well, I mean, on the bright side, we see Nick Saban covering it, so I mean, that's a win.
Yeah, good content for Alabama at the voice of college football,
There you
and it's
go.
good content for us. Everybody wins,
There we go.
but that's a sloppy slate. Shoot,
Week 12 is
shoot.
not. Well, week 12 looks better. That's more like it.
Ooh,
Texas, Georgia, our homecoming opponent, Oklahoma, Florida, Ole Miss. Ole Miss is gunning for revenge. The battle for the
hmm
Golden Boot, Arkansas, LSU, and we got South Carolina, Texas A&M. Man, somebody's been good to us.
Texas Tech, Kentucky. Oh, Ugh. New
Tennessee,
Mexico.
Kentucky.
Yeah, Tennessee Tech. Thank you, Jackson.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like,
There we go.
yeah, my bad.
New Mexico State, Tennessee. Oh, okay. Who gave Kentucky and Tennessee Cupcake Week?
I think they don't want Tennessee to suffer before their Nets game. But that Texas Georgia game, can Texas slay that Georgia Dragon? That's gonna be the question because they couldn't get it done last season.
hmm South Carolina, Texas A&M down there at the bottom. I'm looking forward to watching that game. That could be really fun.
Oh man, Mississippi State,
Flo-
Missouri. Good God, what did we do?
Florida, Ole Miss. That's going to be really fun, especially in
Oh,
Oxford, because another revenge game, another season-ending loss. Florida single-handedly put a stop to Ole Miss's playoff dreams.
yep.
Texas, Georgia's obviously the headliner, and of course Alabama, Oklahoma, Jackson. Another Jackson. I noticed we got a lot of revenge games this year
Yeah, we
for
do.
the SEC. Jackson, please tell me this time when you play Oklahoma, you're going to put up more than 3 points.
They better.
Oh my gosh, Jackson. I never watched a worse football game in my life than Oklahoma Alabama from last year. Jackson, I'm going to say this, and you know I don't say this out of despitefulness or anything towards you, but your team was piss poor last year.
Oh
You
yeah.
all looked awful.
We scored 3 points against a pitiful Oklahoma team. I mean, of course we were.
Like Jackson, and you know I mean no harm in saying that to you, but it needs to be said. You all were awful in that game.
Yeah,
Just for that performance alone, Jackson, y'all deserve to be left out of the playoffs.
I know, right?
But here's your chance to make up for it.
We're gonna get revenge. But of course, Texas Georgia's the headliner. Second
hmm
biggest headliner is Florida Ole Miss. I just wonder if we'll
hmm
see Alabama, Oklahoma either on ESPN at night or on ABC at 2:30.
Week 13. Let's hope it's not Cupcake Week.
Oh God! But of
Oh
course,
gosh,
we got
it's
Tennessee,
Cupcake Week.
Florida. We got Tennessee, Florida as the headliner. Because I mean,
Look,
Tennessee cannot get it done in Gainesville. It's like kryptonite
Jack
for 'em.
Jackson, and of course, just as I say, I hope it's not Cupcake Week. Look at all these damn cupcakes.
I
What
know,
the
right?
what what the hell? Pardon my language, but what the actual hell? Like,
Well, I mean,
listen,
the Eastern Illinois Alabama game. I mean, that's going to be like a 25-minute post game show. So that's going to be
Charlotte, Georgia, Sanford, A&M. Okay, Kentucky Vandy, I can get behind. I can get behind Kentucky Vandy. That might be a good game.
Yeah. Go away, Sanford, testing, and go away, Charlotte, Georgia. These 4 games, we're
Arkansas.
really watching you. I mean, like for me, Texas, Arkansas is the second biggest out of this slate. Tennessee, Florida is the biggest one because I mean, if Tennessee can finally beat Florida in Gainesville,
hmm
that can really show people that Josh Heupel is riding the ship in Knoxville. So if
hmm
they're having a disappointing year or if they're 8-2, this is a make or break game for their playoff hopes. All they got to
hmm
do is play that dragon that's Florida in Gainesville.
Yes. And Jackson, like you've mentioned multiple times, you will put some more respect on Tennessee's name when they go to Florida and beat Florida.
You're damn right I will. You know I will.
But until they do that, you can't take them seriously. That's your pet peeve.
It's always been my pet peeve. They can't get it done in Gainesville. I mean, it's like they haven't gotten it done since before Facebook. That's bad.
Mhm. Arkansas, Texas, Jackson could be fun.
Let's go. The renewal of that rivalry is back for a second straight year. I'm so glad that's back as a conference games.
Mercer Auburn. Oh,
Go away, Mercer. We don't want.
ooh, Coastal Carolina, South Carolina, Jackson. Could that be a
Oh, that
sneaky game or no?
we'll wait and see.
WKU, LSU.
LSU, yeah,
Yeah, this week is kind of sloppy.
it's terrible. But we got. But we're gonna see whether Tennessee can slay that dragon. That's Florida.
Yes, yes, we can do that. But week
Personally,
14 though, Jackson.
even though I'm not the world's biggest fan of Tennessee. For those that really know me, I actually kind of
Hmm.
want to see them in that losing streak against Florida. It's like I can't stand to see other people be miserable, even if it's people I don't really like all that much. Well, or teams I'm not too crazy about. I want to see their
Yeah,
fans witness a little something good in their lives. Because like they're always like, this year's the year, this year's the year. This year's the year. Oh, yay.
but Jackson, for a sloppy week, Tennessee, Florida is going to be the game that we're all going to be keeping our eyes on.
Agreed. Wonder what rivalry week brings. As always, oh, boom. Georgia Tech on Black Friday on the road.
Yes, Jackson. If last year was any indicator, we're in for a treat.
Oh, yeah. And we've got Alabama, Auburn, Texas A&M. Those are going to be the two bangers right there. I feel like they're going to move up Ole Miss, Mississippi State to Thanksgiving. I mean, they're kind of like, okay, having it on Black Friday is not ending well, and no one's going to care about it on Saturday. No one's watching it on Saturday, so we're going to put it on Thanksgiving.
I'll say this too, Jackson. Don't forget Auburn, Alabama, the Iron Bowl tradition every year, and it's in Jordan Hare. What magic is there going to be in this chapter of the rivalry?
Ooh. I mean, we had 4th and 31. We got lucky in overtime in 2021. Lost in 2019. Lost 2017. Got lucky in 2015 because Will Muschamp was losing his temper on the sidelines. 2013, kick sits. 2011, we won by a couple touchdowns. 09, we won by a game-winning touchdown on Black Friday.
Mm-hmm.
It's like we never seem to get it going in Jordan Hare. Like Auburn's always ready for us.
Mm-hmm. Well, in another game, Jackson, Florida State in Gainesville. Even though Florida State's been on the downward trend, could be a fun game.
Oh yeah.
Clemson, South Carolina.
Agreed.
And of course, you've got the Governor's Cup, which we play annually.
Yeah.
Jackson, explain this to me. LSU, Oklahoma. How is that a rivalry? Or is that
They,
just a game they shoehorned in?
they pretty much shoehorned in that game.
Okay.
Because it's
Does
like
LSU have does
nobody's
LSU have a rival? Or are they just there?
they're just kind of there, I guess, for rivalry week. I mean, they have rivals, but not rivals for rivalry week. I kind of feel like at this point they should just have LSU play Tulane on rivalry week. They have Oklahoma play Oklahoma State on rivalry week. I mean, it's like who doesn't want to see more non-conference rivalries? I mean, I do.
Mm-hmm. I mean, Missouri, Arkansas. Like some people, that's another one of them, Jackson. It's been a tradition, but I'm kind of like, is it really a rivalry?
No.
I
I mean,
mean,
nobody is sitting there on rivalry week, sitting there going, "I'm excited about Missouri, Arkansas." I mean, and it's like I don't even think Missouri and Arkansas fans are all that excited, to be honest. It's like it's disaster.
Vanderbilt, Tennessee, too, Jackson. It's kind of like,
God.
the Battle of Nashville, I guess. Uh, Some of these Jackson don't make any sense, but they didn't ask us for our opinion.
No, but they should.
I know, right? I'll say this, Jackson. The headliner for this week will probably be A&M Texas, but a very close second will probably be Bama Auburn.
Oh yeah. Although to be honest, they really should put Texas A&M on Thanksgiving. I don't think that all these games are all on Saturday. One or two of these games will get moved up to Black Friday or Thanksgiving. That's what's going to happen because you really think that the SEC is really going to line up only Georgia Tech? Because let's look at here. It's basically a Georgia Tech home game. SEC's going to want to make sure they got one of their own. They're gonna try to shoehorn. They're probably just gonna be like, screw it. We'll just put Missouri, Arkansas on Black Friday.
Oh boy.
There we
Oh
go.
boy.
We got the real MVP. Let's go. Goodbye. Thank you for tuning in, man.
And Troy versus South Carolina. Yes, Troy. That's one of Clemson, South Carolina here recently has been a very, very, very good game. Especially Clemson, not being the Deshaun Watson, Trevor Lawrence Clemson, it's become more entertaining. And personally, I'll be honest with you guys. I watched Clemson, South Carolina. I watched every bit of that game last year. Like, I did. And I enjoyed every second of it. And people may be saying, why are you watching that game over some of the other? I'm like, because that was a good game. Like, a really good game.
Uh-huh. That was huge. Although, I'm honestly wondering about which of these SEC home games for rivalry we will get moved up to Black Friday. Because I just do not see Ole Miss, Mississippi State staying on Saturday. It's just not happening because it's going to get moved up to Thanksgiving. They're not putting that on Black Friday again, and then they're going to put one of the other SEC games on Black Friday, which I'm thinking they're going to put like Missouri, Arkansas, LSU, Oklahoma, or they could put Texas A&M on there. It's a possibility. Better yet,
Mhm.
Texas A&M could be that Thanksgiving game because you really think we're gonna have a crappy Thanksgiving slate for college football on Thanksgiving Day, where it's like an AAC game, like 2024, like we had? No, that's not gonna
Mhm.
happen. Because one way
And
or another,
Jackson,
something's gonna happen.
and Jackson, it wouldn't surprise me if they put Missouri, Arkansas on Black Friday and be like, here's Missouri, Arkansas, the game nobody wanted. And, since we're feeling in a good mood tonight, we want to hear from you all. We could ramble on about all of our favorite games, everything, geek, 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 geek. But if there's any Alabama, Vanderbilt, Kentucky fans out there, SEC fans in general, come on in and talk with us. Tell us what games you're looking forward to, what games you think are going to be pitiful, that should be removed.
Well,
You
we
know,
got our guy Darrell.
oh, Darrell's always down to talk SEC. Let's
Yes,
not
he
kid
is.
ourselves.
Hello,
Hey man,
gentlemen.
how's it going?
It's going good. It's going good. Well, you all did a good job doing a deep dive of the schedule, but I kind of want to take it broader. The SEC, all they did was basically flip home and road for the 2024 season to the 2025 season. What's your thoughts about that?
Uh, I'm kind of wait and see mode, see what happens. I like seeing, you know, Alabama get shot revenge against Oklahoma and Vandy. I mean, it's just I do wish we did have an Alabama Florida game though. I mean that would have been cool. All I really care about, like for my team at the very least, is keeping the rivals Auburn, Tennessee. I don't care that much about LSU. As for the other teams, I want to see them keep their rivals. I'm just like, oh, you don't have Florida, Oklahoma. Do what you want. I mean, put it there 1 year. Oh, here, Florida, South Carolina, here.
Mm-hmm. I don't mind it because, to be honest with you, it creates revenge games, and I'm all about revenge games. Like Oklahoma, Alabama. Like last year, to be honest with you, I was kind of in and out of that game. But this year, I'm gonna be like intently focused on it because I'm like, okay, Bama, you embarrassed yourself once before. Let's see what you could do now. Vandy, Alabama, I'm gonna be paying more attention to that than I ever would have before. So I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I agree. I think the revenge aspect is good. I mean, I would have liked to see a one or two different teams kind of sprinkled in there just to spice it up for people because you do miss some of the key rivalry games because there's just so many games, and I think maybe prioritizing those games to replace some other non-rivalry games would be good. But yeah, if it's just this year and last year, I'll be fine with it. I'm hoping the 2026 schedule is drastically changed. Um, but I gotta ask you, gentlemen, about the Ross Dellinger report. I feel obligated
Ooh,
to,
yeah.
since that's the big story that's taken over the sport, basically. Um, are you a team 14 or team 16? First off,
Team neither. That's just me.
well, obviously I'm on that team as well. I'm on team 0. That's my team, but if you had to be on a team between those two.
Me personally, I would be on Team 16 because
Fine.
then it would eliminate the buys.
Yeah, I mean it's like team 14, team 12. Nobody's happy with that.
I I don't know how to feel about the difference between the two, but I guess the team 16 and the buys is probably a good difference. The thing I like about the 14 compared to the 16 is it basically freezes out Notre Dame and forces them to join a conference. I believe Notre Dame should join a conference because they're just like everybody else, and forcing their hand into the Big Ten I think would help the game out because we get better matchups. I don't think it's fair Notre Dame gets to play a quasi ACC schedule and not have to really play for their championship or anything, but that's just my opinion.
One of these days, there's gonna have to be a debate on the Voice College Football about Notre Dame and their non-conference affiliation. I think that'd be great right there.
And here's the thing, Dario. I want to bring this up to you. I'm glad you mentioned Notre Dame and how this might force change on them. So we talked about this past year how each team made revenue off being in the playoffs and how far you went. Every team had to pay some of that revenue to their conference or to the TV markets. Dario, you're a smart guy. Jackson, obviously, you're both smart guys. Notre Dame being independent, they didn't have to pay any of it. They made all their money and get to keep it. They're going to look at that and say, why do we want to join a conference? We don't want to pay TV advertisers and conferences. Well, we could keep the money.
I agree with that philosophy. I think if you do the 14, there's only one at large spot available because it's 4-4-2-2-1.
Mm-hmm.
So, how many years is Notre Dame going to be in the top 14? That's the question. Because if they don't make the playoffs, they're making $0.
This is true. Yes, you're correct, Dario. They don't make the playoffs. They ain't making
And
no money. Go ahead, Jackson.
it's funny, like a lot of people that are mad at Notre Dame for not being in a conference like everybody else. Ironically, though, if you look back in the 1900s, like the early 1900s before the 1910s, They actually wanted to be in the Big Ten, which was known as the Western Conference. Big Ten said no. But then time went on as Big Ten was wanting them to join and all that. Later on, they were like, nah, we like our independence just fine.
What? And I think the thing that I find intriguing with Notre Dame is, and Darrell, you talked about this, I believe, with Mark several different times, but what are the likelihood of Notre Dame going to the national title game? Probably not very often. But all Notre Dame has to do is play one or two really good teams and win one of those games and just avoid a bad loss. Like this year, we had so much chaos that they were able to have that loss to NIU and were still able to make a push for the playoffs. In other years, that may not happen. But if they play like an Ohio State or an Alabama, and then filter in another really good team and could split those games, they still might have a case to be in the 14. I feel like Notre Dame's always going to be right there, no matter what, because they're Notre Dame.
Yeah, I get that. I'm just talking about in the general of the sport, not necessarily for how Notre Dame would do. But
Mm-hmm.
what I don't like about this proposal, and I'm not sure where you all stand about this, is the auto qualifiers. I don't believe in the auto qualifiers. I believe football games and who gets into the playoffs should be determined by who wins and loses on the field and who you play against on the field. And when you have, it feels like non-conference games are taking a pretty massive hit. Because if you're a casual fan and you know, well, 4 teams in this conference are guaranteed in this conference, theoretically, every team from one conference can lose. Now, I know that's not going to happen, but it's possible. Every single one of the Big Ten or SEC teams lose every non-conference games, and yet they're still in. You're still getting 4 teams. So it feels like the mystique of non-conference is going away.
Does kind of feel like that. It feels like some of those rivalries that were taken away. Like everybody talks about rivalries that were taken away in 1 or 2 of them that were taken away in the 2020s and some of them in the 2010s. Nobody ever talks about the rivalries that were taken away in the 90s, like Penn State, Pittsburgh, and the late 80s where like Florida, Miami went away, where it's like, we'll never really know who's the best team in Florida.
I understand that, but my point is even if those teams played, how much significance would that game have? Because you're not racing to be the top 12 team. You're racing to be the top 4 in your conference.
True.
Or for Austin's case, it'd be top 2.
True.
Mm-hmm. Well, and you think about it, Darrell. College basketball, they have the auto qualifiers for their tournament. Like every now and then you get those 1 or 2 miracle runs like NC State. We could see that for college football. The likelihood of that happening to real is very slim. But most of the time, whoever wins their conference is probably the best in their conference. Would you agree with that?
I would agree with it. The issue I have with taking it to college basketball is college basketball has arguably the least important regular season in all the sports because you could be Doug Gottlieb's Green Bay team and still have a mathematical chance to make the NCAA tournament, even though his team's 3-25, 3-24.
You got a point because it's
Like I don't want to see horrendous teams. Like we could have a Big 12 team go 7-5 and is the second best team in the Big 12. They lose all their non-conference games, which is Arizona State could have done. Arizona State could have lost to Mississippi State and Texas State, so it's not outside the realm of possibility. And if they lose to BYU, as well as that, because that was a heck of a game, they lost that game by a few yards. I don't know if that team should get an automatic qualifying bid just because they finished second in their conference.
Mm-hmm.
It bothers me.
Mm-hmm. And I could see Daryl where you're coming from because more than likely where this issue lies, Daryl, and I know I'm gonna say this even though I'm an ACC guy, it's the Big 12 and ACC that make people concerned about this format because most of the time the winners of the Big 12 and ACC are not the best teams, whereas the Big 10 and SEC, those teams 99.9% of the time are the best team in the conference. Like this past year, for example, was Clemson the best team in the ACC?
No, not even
Most
close. Well, okay,
some
yes,
people
yes,
would
yes.
some people
Sorry.
would think so, but okay, the Big 12, we'll use them since they're more of a wider. Is Arizona far and away the best team in the Big 12? No.
No, right.
You could have made an argument for Colorado, BYU. Go ahead, Daryl.
No, your point's outstanding. I don't know why I said no for Clemson. I just had a visceral reaction because I've seen them lose to so many SEC teams. So when you say they're the best at anything, the word no just spewed out. But
They lost They lost to Austin's boys on ESPN. That was
yeah, no, they got hammered. I mean, I watched that game and Louisville was just so thoroughly dominant over Clemson. It wasn't even like. It was shocking. Like Clemson looked like a 6-6 team going up against a 9-3 type team. I mean, it was hammer and mate nail for that game. But my issue with this format also is if you are in the Big Ten or SEC, the SEC is a perfect example this year. The tiebreaker system is going to be ridiculous because the fourth spot you have a 5-way tiebreaker for the fourth spot, but depending on what format they use, you're going to have a tiebreaker within a tiebreaker because I think they're not going to have conference championship games anymore. I think they'll probably go away because if you're Texas and you're the 1 seed, why play in an extra meaningless game when if you win, you're in the playoff. If you lose, so I think they're going to have bubble games like a 3-6-4-5. But even if you have a 3-6-4-5 situation, 7, 8, and 9 is going to be left out. So, Texas A&M, South Carolina, LSU, Alabama, and Missouri, those 5 teams would only have 2 or 3 spots. And it's just like somebody's being left out that should be in. And I don't know how they're going to adjudicate that.
Well, and I'll say this, Daryl, you bring up some fantastic points. The thing with me is the SEC. A lot of times, you know how the Pac-12, how everyone always made fun of them because they were beating up on each other. That's what the SEC is going to start eventually doing, which they did this past year because everyone just kept beating up on each other, that we may get to the point, Daryl, where the tiebreaker within the tiebreakers may not even be a problem because some, like especially like Ole Miss, like we thought that they would be tied with like some of the like Alabama, Ole Miss were tied at one point, and then what does Ole Miss do? They go and blow it to Florida, and that ends all that conversation.
Yeah, I mean, Ole Miss, I think, would be in that cluster. Yeah, they're in that cluster of 5 and 3 teams, so they would even still have a chance. That's my issue with this is it feels concrete because it's like, okay, we're even for the pro playoff expansion people. I'm just talking to them because I think me and Jackson don't like going to 14. Yeah. I think you, Jackson, were even thinking 12 was too many, correct?
Yeah, I was not too crazy about 12, but it took me a while it took me several years to be convinced for 8 teams, but like 12, I'm just like, no.
Right. And my issue is it seems concrete and it's more objective, but in some ways it's less objective because who you play is largely going to determine who makes the playoff. And Mark made a video about this on the Voice of College Football. He said, hey, look at Texas's schedule versus Oklahoma's schedule. Texas is basically guaranteed in the playoffs. if they have this schedule next year. Because they're going to be a top 4 team, barring them, just the wheels completely falling off. Whereas on the flip side, Oklahoma is basically guaranteed not to be a top 4 team because their schedule is murderer's row. I mean, look within the ACC, for example. We'll take Austin's Louisville Cardinals as an example. They've got to play the number 1, number 2, and number 3 team all in the ACC. How is that fair to them to play the 3 best teams that they're competing against? That's not fair. So Louisville they could go 7 or 6-2, beat one of the top 3 teams, and still not beat one of the 2 best ACC teams based on the standing.
And I want to play devil's advocate here. Like, I'm with Jackson. If we were going to expand, 8 would have been perfect because then that's no buys, no excuses. Everybody plays, but we didn't get that. Yeah. My thing is, Darrell, I kind of like having, this because it gives a feel of how we used to have it where it was one game, one loss could end your year. I kind of like it now where one loss doesn't define your season. You could still bounce back. And some people I know are against that, and that's fair because it almost seems like NFL Light or NFL Junior. I don't mind it because now you can have up to possibly 3 losses and your season's not over. There is a tomorrow. There is hope. And I think that could be good for the sport because Oregon could lose to, say, Penn State, but then be like, oh, well, our season's lost. But they play Ohio State a couple weeks, and guess what? Their season's still very much intact. I think it can help the sport in a way. Am I going too far off, or
I understand?
Or am I missing?
So, like, if you're a casual fan and you just want to see if your team makes the playoffs, you could lose a game and you're done in the old format. If you lost one game, it's like, well, we're Kentucky fans and we lose a game early, week 3. Oh, we're done. We're going to see you next year. But there's also, I think we've gone from that extreme to the further end of the spectrum. Do we really need teams that lose 4? God. Because we're not even a 3. A 3's pushing it like way too much. That's 25%. Do we need 4, maybe even 5 lost teams in the playoffs? Because I mean, that coastal division in the ACC, that Pitt team would have almost certainly been in the playoffs at what, 6-6, 7-5. It's like that.
Oh my gosh!
Way too far on the other end of the spectrum.
Yeah, I'm with you, Darrell. Like, no. Let's steer away from that. Like, if it gets to that point where a 5-loss, 6-loss team gets one of the auto bids, I would be like, okay. I don't know.
Honestly, it has to get to a point.
Sorry.
I feel like it has to get to a point where everyone's pissed off. Because the moment where you see everyone getting mad and pissed off, not just like a few people, then you'll see some major changes.
Yeah, I completely agree with you with that. I don't understand how we get to that point. Because I know, Jackson, you were watching the debate, and Mark was asked how the people, hey, how many teams do you want in the playoff? And people were like 16. No, I'm just thinking, oh gosh, we're doomed. I'm just thinking that we're doomed. We're the NFL, basically. If we go to 16 teams, you can't convince me. We just might as well go full NFL light and get rid of the ACC, get rid of the Big 12, put them in the SEC and Big 10. That'll be your AFC, NFC, and just have them play. If we're going to 16, because I mean, it's ridiculous. But I mean, I think it's possible we see 5 lost teams. I don't think it's a wild, like, oh my gosh, it's inconceivable even with this format we currently got. Because you're going to have to. Let's say you're an SEC team that doesn't make it as a top 4 seed. How many losses do you have to be the 5th, 6th, or 7th team? If they're doing the schedule agreement where Alabama's playing Ohio State. Well, Alabama, they play Ohio State. That's an L. Then if they play Georgia, that's another L. Then if they play Texas, that's a third L. These losses start piling up. And then let's say they lose to an Oklahoma that's kind of iffy. That's 4. These losses could reasonably pile up pretty quickly. And I think what's going to happen, let me read this. A 5 or 6 loss team won't get any of the auto bids because they parentheses likely won't be ranked in the top 4 conference championship that will open up for a smaller conference. It's they're automatic qualifier spots. So the top 4 ranked SEC or SEC and Big Ten teams automatically get in there. Now, if you're talking about the at-large spots, what team are you going to take? Are you going to take who's the third best ACC team? You're going to take the third best ACC team?
Miami.
Okay, or that team, or are you going to take an Alabama team that lost, even if they lost, let's say, an additional game or 2, would you take that Alabama team because they beat the number 2 team in the country? I just don't like the direction this is going. Maybe I can be convinced this is something great for the sport, but I'm seeing dangerous signs everywhere. Like,
here's the thing, Daryl, and I know this is going to annoy Jackson, and I'm going to try not to. My problem is, I'm with you. The Alabama win over Georgia, it should be valued because that is a major win. You beat your conference champion, the team that won your conference, the team who got one of the buys. That should be valued, yes. But also, you got to think about it too. How did Alabama follow that win up? They laid an egg against Vandy, and then a couple weeks down the road, they laid another egg. As my parents used to say, two rights don't make a wrong, or 2 wrongs don't make a right. Excuse me. One of those 2 sayings. I kind of feel like that applies to Bama. They won a really big game, and we should value that. But you had 2 wrongs, and you still had to be punished for them.
Well, they would,
in my
not
opinion,
even be questionably in. Like, they would have a chance. And to answer Jason O's question, I just looked it up. Alabama in 2027 plays at Ohio State. Let's say they lose that game because that's entirely conceivable. They go 4-4 in the SEC. 5 it wouldn't happen, you would think, but they go 4-4. There's a massive logjam in the SEC. Some odd tie-breaking system happened, or they go 5-4 because they're expanding to 9. They go to 5-4. There's 5 losses right there. Then they just got to beat top 6 if they do a 3 versus 6 and a 4 versus 5 game. And with, their non-conference schedule, right? I don't know what the tiebreaker is going to be, but if it's Alabama, we can assume they'll have a very high-quality win and they'll lose competitively to these teams. I doubt they're going to get blown out in any of these games, so the performance metrics will probably lean toward Alabama. So that's how I think it's possible a 5-loss Alabama team could get in. I mean, shoot, look at Michigan this year. They were, 7th in the Big Ten? I mean, that's only one spot away. That's only one spot away from being in the 3-6 game. So it's not inconceivable that a 5-loss team has a chance. It almost would have happened this year.
Well, and I think the thing is too, Daryl, is the famous quote I hear a lot is how many teams can realistically win it all? And I think that's a good motto to have because when we're doing these playoffs, if we go to 16, let's say they do 16 or 14, how many out of the 14 teams, how many of those realistically can win the whole thing on a given year?
We can eliminate the G5 because they're the G5. The second, I'm being generous here, by the way. The second best team in the ACC, the second best team in the Big 12, so we're down to 11. The at-large bid, I mean, if you're the 14th ranked team in the country, I mean, my goodness, you're not going to have a chance to win all your 14th. You probably got 3 losses. And then you could eliminate, 2 SEC teams and 2 Big Ten teams? I'm being generous, and that puts that puts us at 7. Now, people may dispute the order where they want to eliminate the Big 12 team and the ACC team and replace it with an SEC or Big 10 team, but I think about half the field could somewhat realistically have a chance to make it, depending if everything goes their way, like bracket, coaching decisions, the ball bouncing their way. I mean, look at Notre Dame this year. I think they caught a lot of breaks with their bracket setup, their seeding, who they had to play, and they still, in terms of winning the national championship, they made it there, but it really wasn't a competitive game. No point in the game was it like, oh, is Notre Dame going to win it? I mean, that first drive was amazing, but they're not going to run their quarterback 55 times a game. They're not going to do QB power, so.
And Darrell, and this tells you how, I won't say bad their side of the bracket was. I thought Penn State was going to be, I picked Penn State out of that side of the bracket. And that's with Georgia on that side. That's how weak it was, or how favorable it was. So let's put it that way. I thought Penn State was going to come out of that side of the bracket.
Yeah, I completely agree, especially after the Carson Beck injury. I mean, you're putting a first-time starter into a playoff game. I mean, I don't think that was ever going to work out. I mean, I thought the defense and stuff would have been able to carry them through that game. I didn't think Gunnar Stockton was going to be able to make tons of plays and win a shootout. So, yeah, I think if you look at the bracket now, I think we can realize it was just atrocious because Ohio State, Texas, and Oregon were all on the same side of the bracket. I would argue those are the 3 best teams in the country based on the way the end of the season played out. I think if you have a bracket structure in which the 3 best teams are on one side of the bracket, your bracket structure is terrible.
And real quick, Jackson, the Arizona State Texas game, like we said, Darrell, that could have been an anomaly too. Because how often is Arizona State going to push a Texas team to the limit like that? Probably not very often.
Right, and I think I saw Jason O's last comment. What I think happened. I think the reason this happened is because Greg Sankey, I think it was on the Paul Feinbaum show a year ago. I could be getting some of the details fuzzy up because, I don't have that photographic memory like Jackson does. You can remember dates, quotes, and everything. So, but he said something along the lines of, well, we'll see how the playoff is this year if we want to expand to non-conference games. And then Greg Sankey's looking at the playoff results like, man, look at Indiana's schedule. They played nobody, and they beat, except Ohio State, and they beat nobody good. SMU played as many ranked teams as us 3. Alabama, they didn't make the playoffs. They played 4 ranked teams or beat 4 teams that are ranked. That's better than SMU, and they weren't even really in the conversation. We're going to take this over. Or we're just going to, in my opinion, the other thing he would have done was just make it to where SEC, you thought we were playing cupcakes now. I think it would have been way more cupcake. I think it would have been a birthday cake or a cookie cake palooza instead of a cupcake. They would have loaded that sucker up with FCS games if all we're trying to do is get to a record. So I think the reason, and to go back to my point to finish out the weave, is 9-3 teams like Alabama, South Carolina should have made the playoff, and Ole Miss. And I think that's the reason we're here today with the SEC just saying, no, we're not doing this anymore. You're not punishing us for us playing a significantly harder strength of schedule and not even factoring it in to the equation.
And I know Darrell, you saying that is breaking Jackson's heart because Jackson is a big proponent. If you're a blue blood, you expect to play the best of the best. Like, Jackson up there may not be showing it, but his heart just broke inside that you said that, Darrell. That everyone should play cookie cakes is what we're going to call it.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough, but that's the signal the committee gave us, and I don't think Greg Sankey wanted to do it because I think, and this is just speculation, Greg Sankey's a businessman, and he wants to maximize the amount of revenue he can, like any good business would do, and he's like, well, let's do the best of both worlds. Let me make sure I get my piece of the playoff pie and let me get my piece of the non-conference pie. I don't think it's any coincidence that the day they announced the playoff is going to have these AQ games. We've also got in Big Ten and SEC Alliance, we're getting massive non-conference matchups. The double-edged sword I'm going to mention now is, while I did mention previously that non-conference games have basically no meaning, that also means, hey, we're going to get better non-conference matchups because people want their money, and Alabama gets to play Ohio State, and it's basically a freebie. And they could, hey, Tim, let me tell you, don't hate the system, okay? Don't hate the player, hate the game. We're just smarter than you all. We're just better than you all since 2005. It's okay, man. It's okay. Hey, listen, the SEC. I mean, let's also be honest about this, since Tim's a USC fan. If the SEC wanted to, we have way more leverage than the Big Ten. I know the Big Ten acts like they're on equal footing, but it's like an Alabama-Auburn relationship or a Kentucky-Louisville relationship. You got your big brother and little brother, and the Big Ten's that little brother just thinking they're on our level. We're not. I mean, we got 4 AQ spots. How many times is the Big Ten fourth team going to really have a chance to win the national championship? Close to never, I think, is the answer. What do you think, Jackson?
We'll wait and see what happens. I'd like to see a Big 12 team win a natty, but I just don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. Not in like the next 5 years.
Oh, I agree with that.
Not to cut you off, Daryl. TCU, they were probably a once in a blue moon chance of winning the natty, and that game was over before it even started, if we're being serious. They never had a chance. Go ahead, Daryl.
Oh, you're absolutely right. TCU and these teams, unfortunately, I don't believe will ever have a chance again because you're going to have to win, 4 games going forward? I don't see any. You could combine the best players on the Big 12 into one team, and I don't think they would accomplish what Ohio State did this year. I just think the talent gap is too massive. I think the coaching gap is too massive. I think the lack of teams that are in the Big 12 that just care about football, to be honest with you. I think, they're a bandit of rough people, not in a negative way, but ragtag, I guess is the word I'm looking for. People who just have their own little niche thing, and it's nice for them, but they're not, meaningfully going to impact the will of the college football season going forward. It'll be for us hardcore fans wanting to see close, competitive games. That's what it'll be.
And Tim suggests that the networks killed it. He said, no, the networks did, Daryl, and not for the better. They killed college football.
Yeah,
we enjoyed it.
I've been saying for years, and you know this because you're a good listener on the Voice of College Football, that the playoff expansion is the worst thing to happen to the sport. I was against it from day one. I was arguing against Mark. I've been arguing against him for years now. And the chickens have come home to roost, and this is what happens. When you expand, you open the Pandora's box of everybody saying, I need my piece of the pie, I need my piece of the pie. Nobody ever says, you know what? I've made enough money. That just doesn't happen. I've never heard that in my life. Now, maybe you have, Tim, or you have Austin or Jackson, but everybody says, oh, I got to get more. I always got to get more. How do we grow the pie so I can get more? And that's what I think ended up happening here. So I think we should have just went to the +1 model, which I've been advocating for. I heard it on this channel. I liked it. I think it's a good way to have a playoff-like structure without having playoffs. Everybody can have their chance, but most teams realistically don't have a chance. And then you have a national championship game afterwards. Yes, Jason, I agree. I completely agree with that sentiment. I've been fighting the playoff for years now. I've been fighting it's the worst thing to happen to the sport, and I'm just glad you realize it, man. I'm happy you're on my team.
There you go, man.
Oh boy, Daryl.
There we go.
You have summoned Mr. Tim Prangley, and when you summon Tim, you've done it now. You're going to get it now.
I don't know if he's there because his camera thing just says it's not working.
Well, I don't have the camera on.
Okay. I didn't know if you were. Just
I'm too
completely.
tired to do this, you guys. But here's all I'm going to throw in is I agree with Daryl, and yes, you're right. You and I both of us say the same thing. But the problem is it's now becoming regionality has gone away. The networks did all this.
Yeah.
This wasn't the SEC doing this. They basically colluded to make sure the Pac-12 would close out. Easier to control. The fewer conferences, the more you can control. And now we're going to be stuck with this. There's no regionality. They're effing up all the clock rules. I watched my language for you, Jackson. I watched my language for you. And they
I appreciate it.
They've done exactly what they wanted to do, and we're going to be stuck with pro football light. It's not going to be sustainable. I hope it goes back to the way it used to be. I think the funny thing is when we talked about a +1 for years, everyone said you can't have student athletes playing in January, an extra game is too much wear and tear on them. Now we're talking about 16-team playoffs with rounds, playing 17 games. These kids playing 17 games. It's going to be absurd. And
I agree.
The +1 model is there wasn't enough money in it. You nailed it from your very beginning comment. I mean, I agree more with what Daryl says than I disagree. But
no, Tim, I think everything you said was sound. The only reason I said the SEC moved it forward is because I think Greg Sankey, when it was basically the last gatekeeper, and then he saw the way the playoffs turned out this year, he looked over to Tony Bettini and said, "Let's do this." I think that's what happened, in my opinion.
So you're saying Sankey's greed moved this thing forward. I got you.
Yes, I honestly, if you want my honest opinion, I think Sankey's greed and him seeing the SEC only get 3 playoff spots is the thing that caused this to happen. I think if Alabama, South Carolina, or Ole Miss was in the playoffs this year, I don't think any of this would have happened.
Yeah, well, once you remove all the regionality of it, you tell all the non-Big Ten. Well, I mean, it was going to happen anyway, right? Because of the contracts, the SEC, Notre Dame, and the Big Ten were all going to move into a different category with way more money than the ACC and the Big 12. I mean, the Big 12 were doing their victory laps when the Pac-12 closed down.
Their. Like, I'll be honest, during the Pac-12, Big 12 thing, I was more toward their side just because they were being trashed on so much. But the Big 12 fans acting like they're even have a voice or a say or a matter in this is honestly, like, shocking. I mean, no offense, but they are so insignificant that it's hard to even describe how insignificant they are.
Well, they're about to see the slow burn. I mean, the Big 12 just crashed away, and most of the elite teams that brought all the money and really all the championships kind of moved on. And then the Big 12 is going to just languish. I hate to be the person to tell them this, but they celebrated. But do anyone here think we're going to see a Big 12 championship in any of these playoffs? And every year is going to get worse because every year the difference between the haves and the have-nots with the revenue is going to get wider and wider, and it's just going to be why even it will be like they're not even competing the same sport pretty soon.
Yeah, I agree I don't know how much the money plays into the factor of it, but the cultural attitude, in my opinion, is maybe even more of an impact because even if you look at like Arizona State, people thought, well, Arizona State made the playoffs, therefore they're going to get better recruits. They don't even touch like even the worst SEC. I think they're better than Vanderbilt in terms of recruiting, and then worse than literally every SEC team. It's not even a competition because they just, I hate to say it this way, but they just frankly don't care as enough as us. They just don't matter. It doesn't matter to them. They got their own cultural thing that they care about, and that's fine.
Yeah, I don't know about that not caring part of it. I mean,
no, they don't care as much as us.
Well, I mean, let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Do you think that the fans at Mississippi State don't care as much as the fans at Georgia?
Yes. I think your average Georgia fan cares way more about football than Mississippi State.
Yeah?
Yeah. I think your USC fan, your average USC fan, cares more than your average Cal fan, your average UCLA fan, your average Arizona fan. I think Arizona fans care more about basketball. That's why they're better at basketball. I don't think this is really. I think the reason Alabama is the mecca of the sport is because Alabama football is Alabama. I don't know how to explain it other than you can't have the state of Alabama and football as separate entities. They're one and the same. And nowhere else in this country is it like that.
I think that the Alabama success had a little more to do with a guy named Nick Saban than just being fervent about the sport.
But if Nick Saban wasn't the guy, they were going to hire somebody else that was really good, and then they were going to hire somebody else, and they were eventually going to get somebody that was elite.
Sure, Alabama until I will say this, and George, anyone here can correct me on this. Before the run that Saban had, which is obviously unprecedented, USC and Alabama were very similar in the fact that we would go really high, but then also not sustaining the level of national success that, let's say, other programs have. That's my only point. Alabama, in my lifetime, sure, in the early 90s, in the late 70s, but there's been huge parts of my life where Alabama hasn't been, at the top. Now, in the past 15 years, of course, Alabama's been right there. Why? Because of Nick Saban. But I don't think it's because they care more. I think it's because they had an elite goat of a coach that kids would go to play for.
Well, I'm not talking about always being consistently great. What I'm talking about is they're going to take swings until they get the guy. Like USC did. They were basically a doorman with Clay Helton relatively turned for their standards. They went out there, they took a massive swing. If they were Kentucky, Illinois, Michigan State, would they have taken that big of a swing? I don't think so.
This is the first time USC's taking a swing like this, going all the way back to Howard Jones, which is like the 1930s or what the hell that would have been. So, I mean, USC's been notorious for like undercutting and not going for big name coaches.
I understand that, but you all have the ability, the history, and let's be honest, you all have probably played players and stuff like Reggie Bush is a good example. You've shown your way of caring that wasn't on the balance sheet, we'll put it, in terms of you paying your coaches. I think paying your players also had a large contributive factor, and I'm not saying that to be like you all did it in a bad way. I think everybody did it. I think USC was just one of the best of doing it.
You're going a little too far. USC did pay players the $100 handshakes. Those were all happening, but they weren't buying cars. Sorry, that's where I stopped. Alabama. I'm not going to go. Oklahoma. There's always been people paying money, and USC wasn't the best at it. Some people got to stop and realize that there's advantages of being a school like USC that there aren't at, I don't know, say University of Houston.
Right.
There just are. There's built in. There's the weather. There is the alumni network. Once you graduate, you're set up for life. Kind of like you have a lot of schools like Texas and Michigan. You're set up for life after you leave football. So I mean, it's always been USC's. Everyone points the finger at USC for buying players and doing this. The teams like Oregon, right, that have nothing freaking going for them. I watched my language for both of you guys again. Nothing going for them other than the fact they have a bunch of money. They've been paying people since Bellotti was the coach. Why? Because they're going to sucker some poor kid to go up to Eugene and play there for 3 years. Where do you want to go, you guys? If you have a scholarship, do you want to go to Southern California or Eugene, Oregon? Where do you want to go?
I'd rather go to Southern Cal, but this kind of makes my point of
you get to hang
USC.
You get to hang out with Snoop Dogg at USC, man.
I don't know about that.
That's one of the things too.
My point is you see these schools and you go, okay, I get it. You have to pay a premium, even in NIL right now. There's certain programs you got to pay. In Oregon, they're overpaying for people. Why? Because people don't want to go to Oregon. But if you throw an extra $50,000, $100,000 their way, they're gonna go to your school.
Do you think the same thing's happening with Michigan and them buying Bryce Underwood? I mean, they paid what, a $9 million? Was it $9 million for him?
I don't. I mean, here's my. Well, you don't watch my show, but if you watch my show, DeReal, you would know that I say it all the time. The money you're going to make in your first contract, and definitely, after your rookie contract, your second contract in the NFL is nothing. It makes it makes the $9 million deal look like pocket change. And so
I understand that. And
so why would you go somewhere with Sharon Moore you know, because you're going to make a couple $1 million. That's the kind of guy who's not betting on himself. I don't know if you want.
I get that, Tim, but it's also like if I mean, I was 18 once, and if somebody offered me $6 or $7 or $8 or $9 million to go somewhere, I mean, it wouldn't be hard for me to pack my bags and be on the first flight to that destination. I mean, you know, that type of money's good money, man.
Again, you go there and there's no receivers. I mean, come on,
I
they don't have
understand your
receivers.
point, and you're right.
They don't have a good quarterback coach. They're going to have good linemen. That's one thing you have with Sharon Moore. You know, you're probably going to get some good offensive lines. But if you want to go and you want to develop to be an NFL, a first round draft pick, a top 10 draft pick, you probably screwed the pooch by going to Michigan. Sorry, Michigan fans.
No, I actually agree with everything you said.
I don't want to freeze my butt off.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. It's just when you're 18, the decision making and long term ability to look into the future is a little bit different than when you're 27, 28, 29.
Exactly. I mean, nobody's thinking about 20 years from now at 17. Like when you're 17 years old and a school's offering you a lot of money and 2 women in a hot tub, you're going to say yes to it.
I mean, maybe, but then again, and I agree also, there's probably a lot of pressure from the agents, right? Because it's no longer you have people. I just hope that these people have parents with a head on their shoulders looking at the long-term math, and they have people that really are the best interest of the kid in place. Because no, telling a kid to go take $2 million somewhere where they're probably not going to meet their potential and be that first round, not just a first round draft pick, but like a number 1 overall draft pick. You got to go, you want to go to a system like Dillingham, go to Arizona State with Dillingham, go to USC with a Lincoln Riley, go somewhere where there's a proven track record for an offense that's going to make a simple offense. You can start as a freshman, right? Or maybe like halfway through a freshman year and then just take off. That's, and also 1 or 2 year deal. Go somewhere, show your worth, and then if they're not going to pay you at that school and you get the development, then you become a free agent.
Mm-hmm.
I completely agree with everything you're saying. I just don't think these kids have the wisdom that you do, Tim, unfortunately. I think it's also easier in principle to say all this stuff, and it is the correct opinion, but when you see the check or the briefcases of cash, I mean, in the moment, it's a lot harder to turn down, I would imagine. I mean,
but it's not like the other places are going to give you like, a pack of bubble gum and a baseball. You know what I mean? They're going to give you something good. I think that the point I'm trying to make is that, it's got to be in the wheelhouse, right? If someone insults you and says, well, we got Lincoln Riley, look, we'll give you $1 million. I don't care if they're giving you $4 million. We'll give you $1 million. Then you tell them to go kick rocks. But if they come up to you and they say, hey, look, we're going to give you $3 million. You look at our receivers. Look at our system, it's very quarterback friendly, etc. And then you go, well, no, I'll take the extra $1 million. Then you're not betting on yourself. And I hear you at that age, but I think you might be underselling. I teach 11th grade, and some of these kids are pretty switched on. They're not all that crazy. They can get they can do the math.
Mm-hmm.
And then what you do is you I'm sure all these schools, they don't have them talk coach. They have them talking to players. I hear why don't you talk to Kyler Murray? Why don't you talk to Jalen Hurts? Why don't you talk to Caleb Williams, and ask them how it worked out? So, I mean, look at those contracts.
Yeah, well, you give me more hope for the future than anybody has in a long time, Tim. That's greatly appreciated.
And Tim, Jalen Hurts is a prime example of what you all are speaking to, of taking a chance on yourself, because he was a hero after the SEC title game when he led to come back against Georgia. And he could have easily won that spot back, possibly. But he was like, you know what? Let me go over here to Oklahoma with Lincoln Riley, a place where I know they need a quarterback. I know my abilities. I know what I can do with this team. And Lincoln Riley is going to put his trust in me to get the team where they need to go. And what ultimately happened? They went to the playoffs that year, and he won a Heisman. And as much crap as Lincoln Riley gets, he deserves a lot of credit for that.
Well, I think it was, correct me if I'm wrong, Jackson, but I think it was Nick Saban that actually told him, go this guy Riley, and he's gonna help you get to the league, and he did, and The rest is history, isn't it?
Yeah, because
Yeah.
I mean, 'cause he was like, what's the best school for quarterbacks? And then Hurt said Oklahoma. Well, go there.
Yeah, I think that was a very wise and intelligent move on his part, and I wish more people would be able to do that. I know, Jason, you've left this comment. I think a little bit, maybe just a little bit, is that tainted by those blue and maize glasses. Maybe just a little bit, man, because there's about, 30 or 40 schools I'd rather be playing than Michigan. I mean, it's a nice school, and I'm sure it's, they got great players, but in terms of their scheme and what they're trying to do, I'd rather play at a school like Louisville, for example. I don't think they're going to win as much as Michigan, but Louisville, you're going to be able to show off your talents. I mean, I don't think Jack Plummer was that necessarily a good quarterback, but he did fine. And then you got Tyler Shuck. I'm seeing him shooting up in the draft boards. He might be ahead of Shador Sanders in the draft, the way people are talking about now.
Yeah, Brom's good at going. I mean, and look at what my boy Miller Moss is doing. He's going there to do the exact same thing you're talking about, and getting paid a pretty penny.
Yeah,
and to Jason O's comment about having the greatest quarterback of all time in Tom Brady, well, that's a very rarity. We could throw Texas Tech into this conversation as well. People could say, look at Patrick Mahomes. Look what he did at Texas Tech. Why wouldn't you want to go play for Texas Tech? Because you go to Texas Tech, you're going to be in the GOAT conversation with Tom Brady. If we want to use that argument, which is ridiculous, I'm not using that argument, but that's the argument that he's basically using is we have one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. Well, if that's the case, I'll go play Texas Tech, even though it's not the same coaching staff. The history's there. Patrick Mahomes went here. Maybe I could be in the same league as Patrick Mahomes one day.
Jason was a Miami guy. Isn't Jason a Miami guy? Maybe I'm wrong.
Who knows?
Yeah, but we could go round and round on this. There's some parents and there's some coaches and there's some inner circles that guide these kids. If that number is 9 million, did he get $9 million for one season?
I looked, it's actually 10.5.
So it's 10.5 for one season or 2 seasons?
4. I think it's 4.
For 4 seasons?
Mm-hmm. That's the first thing that popped up when I typed in Bryce.
Basically $2.5 million a year.
I mean, so don't say 9 million because, like, I mean,
2.5. My mistake.
Now, if they're guaranteeing 4-year ones, and it might be, God damn it! I'm sorry, Jason. I should have known better. I just totally insulted him. How embarrassing! I knew Jason. I knew Jason was not a Michigan fan. I got the right state. I'm old, Jason. Give me a break. I did remember that was wrong that you were a Michigan fan. I lost my train of thought. Sorry, Jason.
But I don't.
And real fast, guys. You're talking about Bryce Underwood possibly playing for $9 million. Michigan also brought in another quarterback to have a competition, Mikey Keene. Who says Bryce Underwood's day one starter? I mean, so you're paying this money for a quarterback that may not start this year. Dude, you also got to think about that.
True freshman starting quarterback's never a good thing. Let's put it that way. I'm excited about Lagway, but if he starts, we're looking at an 8-4 season at best. You don't want to start a true freshman.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I completely agree with you. But with Sharon Moore being not pulling the trigger a little bit too soon with the orgy Tuttle Warren drama, I wouldn't be surprised they go a few games and then say, "Oh, this guy's the future. We're going to go to him." And then, "Oh no, he's not the future. We're going back to this guy." I mean, Sharon Moore seems to make very impulsive decisions on the fly.
You might screw up a $10 million quarterback if you put him out there too early. He gets shelled and then sat. That could ruin the quarterbacks. Either they have a strong, temperament, or they're not. I know one big example was the kid. God, what was his name at USC, and Alabama rolled in 2016. Max Brown, and then Alabama just hammered him, and they yanked him. And he was never the same. He went to Pitt and just kind of ruined him. But we'll see.
Oh yeah, I remember that game. That was ugly, Tim. I'm surprised you wanted to bring that up. Because wasn't it like 52-6,
They had
something like that?
they had no business being in that game. It was so the talent level on both sides was such a mismatch that I don't care who you had coaching, and God forbid we had freaking Clay Helton as the coach. That game was over. That game was over about maybe at 10 plays in. USC got everyone excited because they moved down the ball down the field, and then they turned the damn ball over. Yeah, it was. I don't want to rehash that one. My point, going back to that, is you can't. You don't want to put a guy in and then yank him out. If they're going to start him, they better make sure he's ready and they want to ride it, because they put him out there with all that money. The fans are going to turn on him, and he's going to struggle. I think the Jackson's right. I think they're gonna start him out slowly, because you sure as heck don't have the same defense you had last year either. These games are going to be close.
And what irks me about it, real quick, Daryl, what irks me about it, Tim, is if he does struggle, they're going to point the finger at Sharon Moore. They're going to be like, "This is your fault. You shouldn't have done it. This is your fault. You need to go." When some of it is his fault, but it's also because you threw him out there too early. As well. Like, you have to take responsibility for that. Like, you threw him out there too early. He's not ready. And your warm-up game's over now. Like, you're playing Oklahoma. You're playing some real competition. Like, that's what you get.
Don't they play Texas?
Now, hopefully you don't.
They play Oklahoma in week 2, 2025. They're going to play Oklahoma in 2026, and they're going to go to Austin for 2027.
Okay, so they're playing. Well, that's a better game to play. I thought they were playing Texas. Well, I mean, who knows what Oklahoma's going to be next year? But
if I can go back and kind of, well, we got on a bit of a weave. If I can go back to the original weave, Tim, I'm happy to hear that you're anti-playoff expansion, because honestly, your team is probably one of the primary teams that would benefit from the 4AQs. Because I don't think you could very rarely be an Ohio State team, but you'll probably be in that Penn State category, in my opinion.
Nah, we're taking the Big Ten. No. We'll take it Big Ten now. Well, there are bitches.
You had a tactical retreat, it looks like, this year, based on what I was seeing this year. So
USC being USC, like they've always done, is they were woefully behind the times. They didn't have a front office. They were running USC the old school way for the first 3 years. For Lincoln's first 3 years, they weren't doing NIL. Like, you realize that the rule was there were no inducements. Remember that? Remember those days, Daryl? No inducements.
Oh, that was a long time ago.
Well, no, it was just last spring, actually, is when it became a lot. I know the SEC threw that rule out a long time ago. But a lot of people, like Michigan, like USC, some schools were actually following the letter of the law. Like,
kind
they
of
were
funny
not
you
doing
put
inducements.
Michigan in there following the letter of the law when they got caught cheating.
Who got caught cheating?
Michigan with their Connor Stallions thing.
No, but I'm talking about the NIL.
Okay, that's NIL. Yes.
And
caught cheating.
And again, I'm neither here nor there. I thought there was a good way to do it. I think Michigan. Not Michigan, sorry. I thought, God, it hurts me to say, but Oregon did a good job of fudging both worlds. I mean, they weren't openly doing inducements, but they were obviously doing inducements kind of behind the scenes. And then there you have your Tennessees that were just literally saying, "Fuck it, we're just gonna buy." Oh, sorry, damn it, I did it. I told myself I was gonna cuss on your guys' show. They said, "Screw it, we're just gonna pay for players." You know, I mean, we're just gonna buy people. And nothing
Kentucky got caught. Well, Kentucky did it so badly that we got caught and handed a punishment by the NCAA. That's how bad we did our NIL. We actually got caught cheating. They took away our wins. That's how badly we did NIL and cheated.
So I'm just saying. So USC's been behind the curveball. Well, now we're not, and now the gloves are off after the Tennessee ruling. They tried to catch up this year. They haven't. Recruiting has been subpar at USC, but I mean, with the chance of saying that I'm sounding arrogant, dude, if USC gets all their crap together, USC is going to own the Big Ten. There you go, Jason. You know, I'm telling you. I'm just saying right now, USC was behind, and they were not doing it correctly. They were not running the football program the way the big boys were, and they deserved to be mediocre. Well, they didn't. They go in and they took Notre Dame's GM, then they took Wisconsin's GM. They're both at USC now. We have 2 GMs that are now in the front office at USC, and both Steinecker and Bowden are not just random GMs. They're like the up and coming studs in the profession, and they're recruiting. They brought in like 4 or 5 more recruiting staff. So to add all those people, it just shows you how behind the times and how understaffed USC was. So we'll see. Next couple of years will show us, if USC's serious.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think, to be honest with you, I think you're looking through your lens-colored glasses. I think USC will improve. I don't know if owning the Big Ten is possible. I don't know if anybody will.
Why though? I mean, what stop you? What you think? Oregon's this big bad beast nobody can take down?
I think Ohio State's the big bad beast. I think Ohio
State's the big bad beast, but as long as they have that coaching staff, I'm not scared of them. Especially, and now they lost Knowles. The best part about that coaching staff was Knowles. He's gone.
I doubted Ryan Day. I was a Ryan Day quasi hater, not really a hater. I was doubter. I'll put doubter. But he did win the national championship, and Ohio State did put $20 million into that elite roster.
Yeah.
And Ohio State has been the most consistent program in the Big Ten for the last 20 years. So, I mean,
here's something that I keep thinking about, Tim. So, you know how Ohio State won it all, but they lost to Michigan for the 4th straight year?
Mm-hmm.
What if there's like how would you feel if there was a year where USC won it all, but the price they had to pay was a loss to Notre Dame and UCLA in that same year?
Sure.
Ooh.
It's all about natties, man.
It's sad the way the sport's gone, where somebody
you want revenge against both of them in the playoffs.
It's about winning the biggest prize on the biggest stage.
That's true.
And USC, we got 11 of them. We want 12.
There you go.
It's sad, the state of the sport, when you have a fan of a rival team just said, yeah, we can lose to them and it's no problem. I mean, that exemplifies everything that I believe is wrong with the playoff structure.
Hey, man, win in Rome, Daryl.
I know.
Right?
I
mean,
listen,
you play the way the game is played. And now if we go back to the poll system and we go back to all that, the bowl games and the Rose Bowl, and hell, I remember when the biggest thing for USC is getting to the Rose Bowl. That was the number one. Pete Carroll's number one priority was get to and win the Rose Bowl, and then win the national championship. Because he said, if you don't get to the Rose Bowl, you're not going to win the national championship. And so,
I'm not disagreeing with anything you're saying. I'm just saying it's a sad state for the sport when all these rivalry games are kind of going by the wayside effectively, because how passionate can you really be for a rivalry game if it doesn't matter at the end of the day who wins or loses? I mean, that's just...
No, it matters. Well, no,
it does, but it doesn't matter as much.
I would give it a scenario. Well, okay, let me ask you a question. So Kentucky's number one rival is what? Louisville? Who's your guys' number one rival?
Louisville.
Okay. So would you lose to just right now? Louisville's a loss, but you win the Natty. Do you take that?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. That's all. Hey, Daryl, that's all I just did.
I'm not. No, Tim. I think you misunderstood my point. I'm not talking about you when I'm saying it. I'm talking about the sport as a whole. It's sad for the state of college football that fans can accept fine losing to their rival. I would do the exact same thing. Sean Gardner has said the exact same thing, and I think that's an indictment on our sport. Not on the fans, not in the administrative players or staff, but the sport itself, that we're at that place.
Yeah, I got to be clear. I wouldn't be fine with it. I wouldn't be happy. I wouldn't be okay with it.
No, but it's acceptable.
But it's like, if you want to like chop off my pinky finger, but you're going to give me $1 billion, let's go. Chop away. Do you know what I mean? It's like, I don't want to lose my finger, but for $1 billion, yeah, I'll lose my finger.
I get that, man, but it's just like, oh my, it's just, yeah. What I love about the sport is it felt like every game mattered, and we're at the place where not every single game matters, and that bothers me.
Well, the BCS stopped that.
I understand it, but you still, if you won every game, you basically guaranteed your way. I know 2004 Auburn was the exception, but winning every game significantly helped your chances to win the national championship. It doesn't anymore. You could lose a game or two or even three and still make it in with this new format coming down the pipeline.
Yeah, the Ohio State fans want to make a big deal about how they. I didn't get this one, so correct me if it's wrong. So what was it? It was like in the playoffs for 20, because obviously for obvious reasons. Yes, I watched the games, but I wasn't really watching it with the eye I normally would because, well, USC wasn't even close to it. So during the playoffs in 2023, when Michigan won, they went undefeated, they ran the whole thing. Their slate in the playoffs, like Mark was quoting, well, we beat the number 2, we beat the et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? Couple questions. One, just because you're seeding them and they lost to higher seeds, does that mean maybe you just rank them wrong? And yes. So if it goes chalk, does that mean you really beat better teams in the playoff, or was just the fact that you just beat the teams out in front of you? I mean, I don't know. I've heard a lot from the Ohio State fans that don't make a lot of sense. Nothing new, but to look at it and think that because you beat certain teams, it validates the toughest run of all time. I don't know. I think by rule, since they're in the playoffs, if you win all the games, if you win the playoff, you're going to beat the best teams, correct? So I don't see, I don't know. I don't see it. You at least beat the team that beat the team you think's better. Well, to me, it's all about on the field, who beat whom. And that's what
I think
the
his point is. I think Mark's point is the road or Ohio State had to go to win the national championship was the hardest road ever in the history of college football, because they played more teams that are in the top 5. Or even if you want to expand it to top 8 or top 10, if you think they're seeded wrong. Whereas no team has done that before to win 4 straight of those caliber of teams to win the national championship.
And they had to play the extra game because they didn't win the conference.
Right. That's his point. And somebody else will do it. I don't think
they also lost 2 games. So,
right, and that's my issue.
So
that's my issue. I'm fine with Ohio State being in the playoff. After losing to Oregon, who I believe was clearly the best team in the regular season. I don't want to see a world where you can lose to a mid team that's your rival, and it means absolutely nothing. Like, my viewing habits for the sport is significantly going to change based on that one result. Like, for now on, like, Clemson, South Carolina is probably going to be my go-to rivalry game, because that game is going to have far more weight for the at-large spots, because they were top 15-ish teams. Generally speaking, one of them have been over the last 10 years. So I mean, honestly, when they brag about who wins on the series between Ohio State and Michigan, my first thought is, who cares? It doesn't matter going forward, and it's sad. I mean, tell me,
it's just like the Super Bowl. The Super Bowl is not usually pitting the 2 best teams, because sometimes best teams are in the same conference. So I mean, it doesn't matter. The whole point is you win and you advance. And so I don't know. I think the fact, because I am a traditionalist, Daryl, and they went unblemished in the regular season. They beat Ohio State, and then they won the national championship. So I mean, to me, going unblemished is better than anyone saying, "Well, we had the toughest run." You had the toughest run because you got 2 mulligans.
Right. I agree with that. I think going unblemished is a harder thing to do through the course of the season, but I also don't know how much of that it goes into players' psyches of like, hey, we lost a game, who cares? Like, that's just going to happen. You're going to have a player who thinks, oh, we lost this game, oh, who cares? It doesn't really matter.
When you play a Mickey Mouse non-conference schedule, so now you shrink your 12-game schedule down to 9. You give people roughly $30 million to retain and get new talent. You're deeper than everybody else. And this is 15, 16 game run you got to do late in the season where you have the deepest and most talented roster. You don't have to be Vince Lombardi or Saban in order to win. And obviously that's proven because they had Ryan Day win a national championship. So
I agree. And I think it's kind of sad that that's the state of where the sport's at, where you can be off multiple weeks and I can completely no-show and still be claimed by most people as the best team in the sport. I think what's going to happen going forward is we're going to have 3, 4, or even some case 5 lost teams get into the playoffs. And then that team may pull a miraculous upset and win a playoff game. And then what's it going to do for the sport? If you have yeah, I mean, you say no, but I mean that Pittsburgh team that was in the Coastal Division, they would have got a spot. They were the best team in that division.
This could be rare though if that happened. I mean, if it happens, it's an anomaly. What was Michigan like? 7-5, 8-5 on the season.
Yeah, they were 7-5, and they were only like. I think what's going to happen is we're going to have bubble games for conferences. So you're going to have 3 versus 6 and 4 versus 5, and the winner of those 2 games get the 3 and 4 spot into the AQ. So Michigan was the 7th seed, and if they were the 6th seed, they could have made the college football playoff. Based on if they go to a 3-6-4-5 model.
The greatest team, whatever. If you want to talk about schedules, and you also got to look at your worst loss, and losing to a 5-loss team, that puts a big dent in your armor as far as you want to say that what you did on the season, the run you had. Well, you also lost to a 5-loss team.
Well, I mean, it should have, but how many people in 5-10 years is going to remember that? I mean, you got people like Jackson here who's a dictionary.
Jackson will remember.
Yeah, I know, but how many people do you think your average?
Not everybody, unfortunately.
I think most people, if you ask most people right now what the outcome of the Ohio State-Michigan game, your average college football fan, I don't know if they would tell you. I think most of them would say Ohio State won it because they won the Natty. Similar to if you asked your average college football fan right now who won the 2022 Big 12, I think most people would say TCU, even though it was Kansas State.
Yeah.
But, gentlemen, before we sign off in a little bit, Tim, what have you got going on USC at the Voice of College Football, man?
Well, there hasn't been anything going on at USC, but we're going to go live tomorrow. We're going to do, it's going to be fun. You know, everyone does in the off season. We're doing, my thing I'm looking forward the most is going to be that, add one guy. So we're going to go last year, 5 years, all time. And they got to be 3 different guys. And who would we add in order to round out this roster we currently have? And I know it's not finalized with the spring portal, but just as of right now. So we're going to do a show. We're going to do a show on that. And then we're probably going to talk about the defensive starting lineup, but that's about it. It's going to be kind of a meager week, but again,
one of the storylines of the show will be USC AD's Jen Cohen's response when asked about the possibility of the future, the USC Notre Dame rivalry past 2026.
Was that from that LA Times article?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, because I saw where there was like a post from Valentine's Day where she was asked about it.
Yeah.
And she said something about perfect world. And I'm like, whoa. That's got me watching.
Yeah, well, for the first, here the ball is in Notre Dame's court, in my opinion, because now USC is traveling out east.
True.
For half of our games, going as far as Maryland, for games. And so if they want us every other year to fly out to South Bend, join the freaking conference. So, I mean, yeah. I mean, listen, I don't want that to end, but there's got to be some pressure put on Notre Dame because you can't ask USC to, because they can absorb it because they make their own schedule.
NBC will put pressure on. We'll see if they can get Notre Dame to join the Big Ten because I feel like that could happen.
They should have joined a while ago. I think the playoff committee or whoever's involved in that is the one that needs to put the pressure on. Say, look, you want to play in our playoff? Join a conference.
Don't you think the new format's doing that? Because if it's a 4-4-2-2-1-1 model, there's only one at-large spot remaining.
Oh. Well, everyone, you can tune in on USC at the Voice of College Football, where Tim and friends are creating some magic on the Conquest Call-In Show. You can give Tim a follow on Tim_Prangley on X/Twitter and on Instagram and Threads. Give him a follow on there, and you'll get some top-notch USC coverage. And tune in to USC at the Voice of College Football. By the way, congratulations on reaching 6,000 subs.
Thank you very much. You're a big part of it,
Well,
Jackson. Appreciate you.
Way to go, Tim.
It was a long time coming. We stalled out right before 6,000. It took us forever to get that last 150.
It's amazing when you have like a great season, you gain numbers, and if you have a just atrocious season, you also do numbers. But if you're just decent, you won't do anything.
Yeah. Yep. If you're in the trash can, there's lots of hits and lots of content. If you're in the playoff hunt, same thing. If you're 7-5, nobody cares.
Right. The best world is you're 10-0. That way you're still in the playoff hit, but you lose that 11th game. That's the best way to get clicks.
Yeah.
I'll be honest with you. I don't care about clicks. I want that 12-0. I don't. I'm not going to take 2 on the nose just so I can get clicks. Let's put it that way. But
I will admit, Tim, as a fan, just a neutral fan, it is a lot more fun watching you when you lose. I will say that.
I'm pretty neutral. You think I get upset when we lose?
No, it's not you. I wasn't talking about you when I was doing. I'm talking about all the callers and stuff.
Oh, good God!
Yeah, I know. It is like watching the Paul Feinbaum show when Alabama loses. It's that level of goodness.
Man.
Well, let's face it. That's every fan base.
Tim, remind me to tell you about some of the behind the scenes. When I was waiting it out for my turn to call the Feinbaum show. Like, I need to show you some of the clips of some of those psycho callers. Like, I feel like they sound like they're from the mental institution while spitting in their snuff cup with a mouthful of dip.
Oh God.
Oh boy.
Like, bitch, I'm gonna have to tell you about that one of these days.
I do want to hear it. That's horrifying as it is. I sadly do. I am very interested in hearing that, but yeah,
because it's like some of those callers, like one of them named Judge. Let's just say their definition of how not to act in public. Their mama would be embarrassed.
We stopped getting Oklahoma calls, and the funny thing is, the last 2 Oklahoma calls I got were like just awesome fans. I mean, just like great fans, really knowledgeable fans. Because I queued this up because I had these guys just constantly calling in saying, y'all, it's making no sense. Y'all this, y'all that, blah, blah. I had this one ready for him. So, I mean, I was going to keep playing that over on a loop almost in order to get that spit cup ready. I was a spittoon, but I know, but I just pictured them sitting there with just sitting there at a bar, big old fat load in there and just spitting constantly. And that's exactly what I got, the vibe I got from some of these fans, because you get it on the internet. You get the best of fans and you get the absolute worst of fans. You don't generally get people the level head in the middle, but the last 2 or 3, once I had that sound, I jinxed myself in a good way. Once I put that thing on there, we had 2 or 3 Oklahoma calls in a row that were just like, they were critical of USC, but every point they made was like spot on.
I will admit that was probably one of the most fun eras of the college football show, was just watching you all go back and forth. And it's even more fun, no offense, realizing both of you all are in the toilet. Like, you all argued over scraps, basically, is what it amounted to being, which is even more funny, like retroactively watching it. Because you're we're going to go 10-2. We're going to go 10-2.
Like, what I love is that when fans of programs and USC goes like 8-5 or something like that, and win our bowl games, they tell us we're in the toilet. That's what I love, because we're that good. At 8-5 seasons, some programs would just strive for 8-5 and to win the bowl game. Over and beating 2 SEC teams in the same year, starting off LSU and closing that with Texas A&M, and we're in the toilet. So thank you, Darrell. I appreciate that.
Listen, I know my place, okay? I know my place is a surf, okay? We're just completely underneath y'all, and you all are the elites. The coastal elites, in fact. And I understand my place in society, okay? I accept my 7-5, 8-4, happy-go-lucky role in life.
Listen, I could say something, but we lost to him last year in the bowl game with the quarterback that we now have. So, good turnabout, fair play, I guess. Can't beat them, join them.
Well,
you're getting a good one.
There you go. You can check out Tim Prangley on @/Twitter and on Instagram and Threads. at Tim_Pragley and check him out on USC at the Voice College Football. And Darrell, you got some magic on @/Twitter. What have you got going on there, man?
Well, I've been posting a lot about college basketball games that have been happening, reacting to who's in, who's out, and I reacted a bit to that Ross Dellinger article, just reacting to all the news that's happening in the world. You can find me in the link below, Darrell MVP 2437. I appreciate 2 of the 3 people on this panel following me. I greatly appreciate that.
Hang on. I better be following you. I'm looking right now. Am I following you?
No, I followed you and you didn't follow me back.
Dang it. Hold on. We're fixing that right now. We were fixing that immediately. There we go. And look.
Ta-da.
Holy crap, you do follow me. Oh, that is embarrassing. Darrell, we got to get you a banner. And Darrell, why don't you have your own show?
Well, I can talk to you about that off air. I don't want to spill out everything on air, but
Send me a DM. There we go.
There we go.
I guess
We'll talk
Hit him
all
up.
about it.
We'll let
As
you
the
guys
kids say,
off,
hit him
off
up.
the air, and if you guys want to hang out in the green room, cool. If you don't, that's okay. Because you know how it is in this hour. And gentlemen, y'all have an awesome night. Sleep well, stay safe, stay warm. It's cold out.
Thank you. You do the same.
And before we sign off tonight, Austin, what have you got going in your world this week?
Well, Jackson, I understand you're feeling polite, but good buddy, I always want to promote your stuff first because good buddy, like I said, you are what makes this thing go, good buddy. I'm just here for the ride. You are the heart and soul, good buddy. So we're gonna promote you first, good buddy, to show my appreciation. And
Well,
what better way to do that is with a project that you love. Go ahead.
Well, we got Alabama at the Voice College Football, where Johnny and I host Monday afternoons, 5 p.m. Central Time, 6 p.m. Eastern Time. Although this week it got moved up to Tuesday because of, well, some stuff going around behind the scenes, of course. Nothing too bad.
Mhm.
Just some stuff behind the scenes. But, of course, there's the Alabama Call-In Show where Jeffrey and I take your calls discussing your take on
Mhm.
Alabama with the Boys College Football. And let me tell you something, that's a wild ride. And we are
Mhm.
now 69 subs away from the magic number 2,600, but we got to get to 3,000, and we need to get to 4,000 before Texas at the Voice College Football does. Because, yeah, Texas was the last SEC team in the playoffs. That doesn't mean they rule the SEC. We show at Alabama Voice College Football, we show everybody who's really kings of the SEC. But in all seriousness, we appreciate you tuning in to Alabama Voice College Football. And also, check me out on Jackson Johnson 979, where I host numerous episodes of the Jacksonium. And I do some live streams here and there with my good buddy Austin Williams and my good buddy Will and D Wednesday afternoons for college basketball. And I'm 106 subs away from that magic number 500. I'll need all the help I can get to 500 subs. And if you want to see who I've got on the Jacksonian or on Alabama with the Voice College Football, check me out on Jackson VOCFB on @/Twitter and on Jackson Johnson 543-908 on Instagram and Threads. Or if you're not too crazy about Instagram or Twitter/X for some reason, check me out on Blue Sky if you're sick and tired of
Mhm.
those ads. But in all seriousness, though, on all of them, they all have one thing in common. What I've got going on Alabama with the Voice College Football, what I've got going on the Jacksonian, and my weekly calls on the Paul Feinbaum Show. Now, with that being said, we wish you all a good night and to like, comment,
Well, hold
subscribe.
on, good buddy. We gotta promote me.
I thought we did. My bad. So,
No,
you
no,
can
no,
tell
no.
when
I'll
my
let you go
brain's
first.
going at- You can tell when my brain's
I'll
going
let
at 2 a.m. My bad.
I'll let you go first, good buddy, because you're the Batman. I'm the Robin. But so
All right, friend
you
Robin.
can friend Robin. But as you can see, you find me on Sports Talk with Austin 2002. Follow me on Austin 1980 2639 on my Twitter link. And also, I don't mind sharing this. We'll be back next week sometime because we're going to break down another schedule, whether it's Big Ten, ACC, or Big 12. We've yet to decide. We might do the ACC next. We may do the Big 12. We're going to keep you on your toes. We're going to break it down like we did tonight. We may even take some calls with it. But that's what I've got going on next week. So me and Jackson will be back. We're going to preview another conference. And this is where your all's feedback will come in at. If you want us to do the American Conference, the Mountain West schedule, we'll do that for you too. Even though that'll be a whole nother mess, but we'll do it because we love you. But first we'll get the big ones out of the way. That's what she said. But anywho, but keep it locked here on mine and Jackson's channel. We'll be back. We're going to talk more conference and we'll have more great debates. But now, Jackson, wish everyone a fantastic night.
After that, we wish you all a good night. Sleep well, stay safe, stay warm. It's cold out. And to like, comment, subscribe, click on the notification bell so you never miss no video whatsoever. And we will see you soon. Take care, everybody.
Go Cards.
Roll Tide.